Amigos, amigas, players, playerettes, dudettes, everybody in between. We are back now for a episode that ends in an even number, 70. Murph didn't like the previous episode because it was after 68 and before 70, but hey, this one's 70, so welcome.
Hey, everybody, it's Murph. Welcome back to the show.
And I am the world's most recognizable unpaid Tommy Bahama brand ambassador, former detective and state trooper, which Murph likes to make fun of, Morgan Wright. Hey, but we're glad that you guys are back with us. Don't laugh; it's true. You wanted to be one.
I don't make fun of troopers. I just give you a hard time.
Just make fun of me. Yes. Well, hey guys. Well, thanks for joining us. We're just going to do a little bit of housekeeping before we get into the fun. This one is going to be a fun episode. You'll find out here in a minute. So, hey, head on over to Apple and Spotify. Those 5 stars, those reviews, really help us out a lot. We appreciate all the help you guys do for us. So, just head on over there. Leave your comments. Tell us what you think. We really appreciate it. We look forward to it. And guys, it helps us make the show better. So really head on over there, Apple, Spotify, 5 stars. We appreciate it. Also head on over to our website, gameofcrimespodcast.com. Everything's there. We've got books. We've got things. Our mailing list is there. Our merch is there. So head on over, get some stuff to rep the brand as Marlon Carlson did called, he's got a Facebook account or Twitter account called Making a Podcaster. He still hasn't made a podcast yet. So get off your ass, make a podcast.
Yeah, but did you see the picture?
I saw it down at Disney. Yeah,
that was fantastic.
He's in the Magic Kingdom, and he's got a shirt on the front that says "Evil is coming."
Yep.
It's a daddy. It's a bad man.
I loved it.
Hey, follow us on social media, and you'll find pictures like that he just posted at Game of Crimes on Twitter, at Game of Crimes Podcast on Facebook and the Instagram. But where you got to be, I guarantee you, I say it 3 times, and Murph will answer. Where do you got to be? Where you got to be? Where you got to be?
Got to be over on our Patreon page.
See, it's like magic. I say it 3 times, and Murph answers.
Hey, next thing you know, I might turn into Beetlejuice, so be careful. But come over and check us out on Patreon. It's content that you're not going to hear on the regular podcast. Yeah, there's a little bit of a fee, but we hope that once you listen to some of the stuff on there, you'll think it's worth it. Give us a shot here. There's a lot of different, we've got as much content on Patreon as we do on the podcast, probably more. Unbelievable.
No, it's not unbelievable. It's believable when you see, how much time we spend looking at each other over a video camera and recording stuff. It's believable.
Well, not to mention the research that goes into this stuff. It's I don't think I did this much studying when I was in college.
We scour the bowels of the internet so you don't have to. That is our new motto. So we find the stuff nobody else wants to find. But yeah, it's on Patreon. We just dropped episode 6 of the Real DEA Narcos, talking about the Real DEA Narcos Cali edition. We've got 911, What's Your Emergency coming up, another case. If you are at the right levels, then you get access to our narco meters where we review a movie every month that's law enforcement related. This month it was Al Pacino. Depends on where you're listening to this in time, but if you're listening to it in September or October of the year 2022, in the year 2525, that's Zager and Evans. That's a different song. Anyway, I digress.
Sorry, I fell asleep there.
First drinking thing. But anyway, guys, we got a lot of good stuff there on the Patreon. So go over there, patreon.com/Game of Crimes.
Yep.
But also, what? You're going to say something?
No, I just said, yep, I'm agreeing with you.
Oh, yep. You're agreeing. Of course you agree with me. I'm right. Get it right? Anyway, paypal.com. Just go over, use our email, gameofcrimespodcast@gmail.com or paypal.me/gameofcrimes, whatever it makes it easier for you to support the show. Now, just if you want to support the show too, hey guys, go to Facebook, type in Game of Crimes fans, our mafia queen there, Sandy Salvato, who rules the roost. Guys, just if you have a heartbeat and you can put 3 letters together on a keyboard, just say yes or, I agree. Whatever it takes, just join the club. Head on over there with us. We have a lot of fun in there, don't we, Murph? As I catch you in the middle of a cough, you hit the mute button and you're coughing.
Oh, I hit the mute button and still heard it?
No, but I could tell you were coughing.
Yeah. No, I mean, come on over and check it out. Sandy does a fantastic job. You're going to see some funny stuff on there that come in from the fans on the fan page that I tell you what, some of the stuff I read just makes me fall out of my chair laughing. Some of it's a little bit sad. We try and respond to as much of it as we can. Just try us out. And you know what? It's free. It doesn't cost you anything.
No, doesn't cost you anything. Just head on over to Game of Crimes fans. But before we get into the rest of the show, Murph, I have to tell you, we have to have our standard disclaimer. This is a show about crime. We talk about bad people doing bad things and bad people doing bad things to good people. We take the stories extremely seriously, but
if you're new to this, you're going to learn. We never take ourselves serious here. We're going to have some fun. We cover some serious topics, but we're going to have some fun doing it.
Yes, and one of the ways we have fun and one of the ways we show you we don't take the show seriously, I have to ask you, Murph, guess what time it is? Guess what time it is? Guess what time it is?
I bet it's time for Small town police
police blotter. Yay!
Woohoo!
So one of the ways we do have fun is we bring you the stories, the weird stories at Murph. Even though this is not a Florida story, this has a Florida connection. We were just talking about Magic Kingdom. We were just talking about Disney. You're not going to believe this, Murph. Donald Duck.
What'd Donald do?
1052 Taggart Avenue Northeast. I guess apparently that's where Donald lives. Was arrested by Massillon police. I'll have to look up where Massillon is. At 5:36 p.m. Saturday after police said he hit a car while in the drive-thru of Little Caesars Pizza. 812 Lincoln Way East, according to sheriff's report. Duck smelled of alcohol and was in possession of marijuana. Police said Duck was charged with driving while intoxicated and 2 misdemeanors.
I'll bet you if you check into it a little bit, if somebody named Donald Duck probably does meth. What do you
I
think?
bet he does too.
I wonder if Daisy dimed him out.
I wonder, when the police were talking about.
Who would name their kid Donald Duck?
Oh my God! Why would you do that, parents? Parents, why would you do that?
Well, and there's something else that our listeners can send in to us. Some of the very different names that you've heard people have named their children.
If you've heard weird people getting arrested, let us know. By the way, Steve, this is from Kalispell. I'm going to give you 4 quick hits. Kalispell, Montana. Population 23,935. Salute. All right, 4 quick hits. This is the real police blotter from Monday, July 16th. At 9:49 a.m., a mom called in complaining that her 16-year-old son wouldn't listen to her. Well, 10:14 a.m., a Big Fork resident received a disturbing letter composed of cut-out letters. That might disturb you. 10:50 a.m., a woman on Batavia Lane who discovered that her son threw a party over the weekend called in with hopes that he might be charged with a delayed minor in possession. There's a parent taking responsibility. Steve, a runaway cow at 12:18 caused a disturbance on Rose Crossing. Did you know that?
I don't think I needed to know that either, but
12:59 a.m., a man on Wisehart Road possibly freaked out. That's the whole entry there. And at 1:36 p.m., someone called in with a lot of what-if questions regarding stalking and harassment scenarios. Either they're a victim or they're about to become a suspect.
That's exactly right. Holy cow. Oh, that's a busy blotter right there.
That was a busy blotter. Well, hey, I got one more for you, too.
What's that?
A woman in the 1100 block of Orange Street reported Tuesday that someone kicked in the back door of her house. We responding officers, you guys back, the day when you were a real cop, you took reports like that. People break in and do stuff. Whoever broke in, though, stole an electric foot spa, a bottle of laundry detergent, and a mop bucket. Guess what, Steve? The thieves made a clean getaway.
Oh.
That was in the paper. That's not me. The thieves made a clean getaway. That was them, not me. But thank you very much. Be here all week. And we probably ought to do an episode on the weirdest calls we've ever received or the weirdest calls ever made. Steve, this is one. Thursday at 3:20 p.m., a resident who needed help opening a jar called police for assistance. Police opened the jar for the caller.
Oh, my gosh. So, you know what? I mean, this is a little bit more serious of these silly calls, but that's why police don't know what the hell they're supposed to do nowadays, because they're called to take care of everybody's little problems. That's not what law enforcement is about.
Now, if you're in a small town, I will tell you, and if it's one of your elderly neighbors, most small town cops will go over and do that.
Right.
But they didn't. If they just would have put in an elderly resident who needed help opening a jar, it wouldn't have been on the show. But they didn't. They said a resident. So maybe you ought to figure out how to open up a jar. Get one of those little jar openers, or get a sledgehammer.
There are people out there that just want cops. They're kind of like uniform chasers. They just want cops to come to their house.
Yeah.
You never know if that's the case or not.
You never know. Okay, we won't talk about how you met your wife, Murph.
No, that's not it, believe me.
You could barely get a date with her. That's your story. She's like, I don't like it.
What
did she say? You were arrogant? Didn't she call you arrogant?
Yeah, she does sometimes. I don't know where that comes from. Just because I'm the best looking guy on this podcast. I mean, what the heck?
Oh, yeah. Well, let's end the reading for today. P.A.S. Domine Daneus Requiem. Let's end this before Murph tells another big fib. All right. But anyway, hey, we got some good stuff coming up for you. So this one, Murph, we've had a couple now, probably 2 or 3 episodes now come to us through our familiarization, our familiar agent, Daniel Schmertz over at United Talent Agents. But this one we almost didn't do. And it's not because the story's not interesting. It's because we needed a nexus to law enforcement.
Right.
And we found it.
Oh,
And so
yeah.
the nexus to law enforcement is actually bookend between the real fun parts at the beginning and at the end, because this dude was the guy who pulled Saddam Hussein out of his little spider hole.
Oh, yeah. And this was nothing against Daniel, but it actually got a call from David Buchalter, who's our
David. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, but
Speakers
UTA
Bureau
folks.
agent
Yeah.
at United Talent Agency. But when you hear this, when he first called me about this, he's telling me, okay, this guy he's a former SEAL Team 6 member, and he's also a former U.S. Army Delta group.
Now, special mission unit, Steve, Delta does not exist technically.
Yeah, well, that's what they say. Although I have a coffee mug that might suggest different. Anyway, and I had the same concern of what's the law enforcement connection here, and he said, well, he happened to be a North Carolina wildlife officer, and that qualifies. So you never know on these people. So you call and do an initial interview with them, and David had sent us some links so we could do some pre-checks on our guest today, and I watched 2 videos and I was hooked. I mean, its story is extremely motivational. You talk about a small town boy making the big time headlines. This is the guy, one of the most humble people we've ever had on here. Goes into great detail. One of the longest interviews we've ever done, I believe, if not the long. I think, did he beat Dave Reichert?
No, but he came close. I mean, we're closing, folks, and this kind of started a conversation Steve and I are having, but yeah, this is going to be about 4 hours altogether with the intro and outro, and the stuff. So, but let me tell you, we had gone through the first 2 hours before we realized we hadn't even finished with his SEAL experience.
I know this. It's just so interesting, and maybe because we know people that worked in the Navy and the SEALs and in the Army and the Delta Group, and his small town attitude I love, because we're both small town boys, and same with Javier, he's a small town boy. His humbleness, that he doesn't want to take credit for things that he actually did, the challenges that he went through and overcame, his commitment to his country, his patriotism.
Yep.
Today, and we interview a lot of heroes on here. Here's another true hero, Kevin Holland. Got the utmost respect for him. I hope I get the opportunity to meet him someday to shake his hand. We tell him thank you here on the show, but it's just not enough. The words thank you just aren't enough for people like this. What he went through and what he's continuing to do. I mean, even though his military career is over, and it was kind of ended because he was going to tell you what happened to him. I don't want to spoil the story here, but he hasn't let that stop him. Even in retirement from the military, he's continuing to help people around the world. This is one of the most motivational stories we've done. I love this story.
Anybody who has 7 Bronze Stars and 2 with Valor has a hell of a story to tell. And so you realize we did a slight bit of a digression. There's a little bit of the law enforcement experience sandwiched in between, but what he did really, in a sense, was law enforcement stuff. I mean, they're out there getting rid of the bad, the worst of the worst, the baddest of the baddest. And Saddam Hussein was definitely one of the worst people ever. The number of people he killed, what he was responsible for doing, it was good that he was caught. And he did that. So he was Navy, went into law enforcement, wanted to get into the Army after 9/11, and they said, you can't do it because you're not in the military. So what did he do? He went down and joined the National Guard, and he says, I'm in the military. Next thing you know, he's a member of the Special Mission Unit, also known as Delta. But hey, look, we can't even do a story justice. The only way to do a story justice is for me to ask you, Murph, are you ready to play the biggest, baddest, most dangerous game of all? The SEAL-friendly, Delta-friendly Special Mission Unit DevGru Game of Crimes.
Everybody, this truly is an episode where you need to get in, sit down, shut up, hold on, and pay attention on this one, because this is a hell of a story. So, Kevin, come on, brother. Tell us about your heroic events.
Okay, folks, I got to warn you, not only is this going to be good, this is going to be something we've never quite done before, because, Game of Crimes, we focus on the biggest, baddest, most dangerous game of all, the Game of Crimes. A lot of this has been around criminals, criminal actors, criminal cases, even international things. We kind of have we have a connection with this one, Murph, I would say, don't you?
Oh, he's a hybrid. That's what we'll call him.
We'll call him a hybrid.
Yeah.
Hey, what is that, like a redneck and a hillbilly?
Well, wait till he talks like me. He and I understand each other perfectly. And y'all going to see what I mean here in just a minute.
Well, we'll tell you here in a minute. But first of all, we got to welcome our guest of honor, Master Sergeant Kevin Holland. Welcome, Master
Absolutely.
Sergeant.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Honored to have you on here, Kevin. Thank you very
Yes,
much.
sir.
Already tell by the accent. Already tell by the accent. Here we go. It's going to be fun. All right. Hey, well, like we say, this is going to be unique because you were a SEAL, you were Delta. And the research we did, and the research I said, it says the only publicly known person. So that's always you couch that stuff. But as far as I know, that is still correct, right? You're the only publicly known person that was DevGru and Delta. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't know who put that out there, but I mean, I saw somebody sent that to me, and I was like, wow, somebody's done the research. But yeah, it's true. Yeah.
Somebody named Eric SOF, and I don't know if that's his SOF for what we know it to be, or if that's his last name.
People put stuff on there. I'm not on any of the social media stuff, so it's just one of those. I guess people do some research and digging, and
you're on there now.
You're on there now, pal. Well, and not that you want to be. We were just talking about some stuff, so we're going to get into some interesting things here because you have a very interesting story. How it ties into this thing of ours called the Game of Crimes. Well, quite frankly, this will touch on Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein wasn't just the leader of a country, which by executive order, for you folks keeping score out there, executive order 12333, were prohibited from conducting political assassinations. However, Saddam Hussein was also the leader of a military, which makes him a military target. So we kind of get out of that political thing. This is why it ties in because he was I would say one of the biggest criminals ever in the Middle East. Him and his sons, the stuff they did are crimes. You know, they're war crimes. They're crimes against humanity and people. And we've got somebody who's got a little bit of experience with that. So we kind of set the stage so people know why we're talking to an operator like Kevin Holland. So Kevin, as we do with everybody, as we call this thing Cosa Nostra. What, Steve? Thing of ours.
Well,
what?
And we also want to bring up the connection to the Game of Crimes here is between those two adventures he went on. Kevin was a North Carolina wildlife officer. He was in law enforcement for a year or several months. How long?
No, 5 years.
5 years.
Yes,
so
sir.
We're not getting away from our theme of crime here, but he's got some fantastic stories that you're going to hear to include the wildlife officer stories.
Wildlife.
So and you might want to explain, some of our listeners may not understand what DevGru or SEAL team is versus Delta Force from the Army.
We are going to get into that, Murph. Thank you for asking, because that's going to work right into our...
I'd hold you by the hand.
I did. Thank you so much, man.
I'm here for you. I'm from the government. Yeah. I'm here for you.
I don't know what I do to deserve this. Yeah, so, Kevin, as we do with this thing of ours, how did you get started? So what came first, the military or the wildlife?
No, I went straight out of high school into the Navy. I grew up hunting and fishing in North Carolina, and I kind of idolized, John Wayne and just men back in the day, that they do movies on, and the special operations guys, and so I kind of from an early age knew that that's what I wanted to do when I got out of school. I played baseball and football in high school, and I had a scholarship to play baseball, and I went and did all the walkthroughs and everything for playing ball, but I had already signed up for the Navy, like in December.
Why Navy? So why'd you pick the Navy over the other branches?
Well, I went into the recruiters and
join the Navy, see the world, right?
No, not really. I went into the recruiters and I spoke to the Army guy, and he was kind of busy, and he put a VHS tape in and showed me some Ranger stuff, and it really wasn't real motivated. And I was kind of a little bit, I don't know, disappointed because, I'd had a poster of the Green Berets, on my wall growing up, and this, that, and the other thing. So that's what I really thought about doing. And that really didn't motivate me much. And I went into I didn't go into the Air Force, room, and I just went into the Marines and the Army. And the Marine, he was like, and I'd mentioned that I'd looked up UDT SEAL in an encyclopedia because there was no internet, none of that back then. And it talked about, how tough these guys were. And so I mentioned that to the Marine recruiter, and he goes, well, you'll never make that. He goes, but I can have you in Marine Recon in 6 months, and so, but I went, wait a minute.
He's trying to set that hook, isn't he?
I can't be a SEAL, but in 6 months, I'll be a Marine Recon. And I'm like, well, okay, so which outfit do I want to be?
Hmm.
The one I can be in for sure in 6 months, or the one that you may not make it, So anyway, I dismissed the Marines, and then so I went into the Navy recruiter, and I hadn't even spoke to this guy yet, and he had no clue about uh, the SEALs. And I said, hey, I'd like to talk about.
Wait a minute. The recruiter had no idea about the SEALs?
No, I mean, nobody did back in the day. This is '87.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not like now where everybody knows who they are and this, that, and the
Hmm.
other thing. And so that recruiter's like, well, he goes, well, with your GT scores and ASVAB scores, you can be a nuke, son. And I'm like, well, what is that? And he goes, well, it's a 16-week school, and you blah 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 blah. Be on a submarine. Working on nuclear reactors. And I'm like, oh no. I said, that's not what I'm doing.
Wait a minute,
I
how
said,
tall are you?
5'9".
That's
Oh,
why.
okay.
That's why. So he would fit in a submarine when you hot swap the bunks there, you
Yeah,
fit perfectly.
bump your head.
Yeah. So I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I said, he goes, well, I'm going to have to do some research for you on this
Really?
thing. And so, yeah, so I had to go back a few days later, and he's like, there's a dive fair program where you get a shot to try out for it, in boot camp. And if you make the, the PT test, basically, then you choose an A school, and which is your MOS school, basically, of what you're going to be doing in the Navy when you quit SEAL training. That's what he told me.
Say now,
And
hold on. We got a rule here too. I forgot to tell you. You got to define acronyms. So you said A school and MOS. So let the
so,
folks know what that is.
so the A school is basically a school that you have to go to after boot camp. That you it's going to be your occupation in the Navy. So there's like engine mate, there's boatswain's mate, there's aircraft whatever maintenance. Mine was the shortest one I could find was photographer's mate, because that's what I asked him. I said, hey, there was a list of schools that you could say, hey, what is the shortest school that I can go to to get to SEAL training? Because in my contract, if I pass that test in boot camp, then I get a shot at going to Buds and after my A school. So that was the deal. And so, once we talked about it and this, that, and the other thing, I said, well, do you have any kind of training regiment, for getting ready, And he says, well, he goes, I'll tell you, he goes, go out in the woods and cut you a log about 12, 13 inches through. And then you carry that log, for a couple miles a day, every day, you know. And I was like, I said, well, how long, And he goes, well, about 8 feet, And I said, okay. So I did. I went home. I took a chainsaw. I cut a
Now, did you
tree.
think you were being screwed with though at that point?
No, I mean,
No.
he came back from doing research and all this stuff, and had all this stuff laid out. I mean, the second time I went in, it was pretty professional. And so I'm like, all right, So I'll go home, and I take a draw knife, and it's a sourwood tree. So I draw knife this tree off, all the bark, and it's all slick and nice, and I let it dry. And and then, man, every day after football or baseball practice, I'd go up and down the road with this log right here where I'm from.
Now, did your neighbors think you were a bit touched or something was wrong with the young lad?
Absolutely. So one of my neighbors he's like whatever carrying hay to his cows, and he's got a front end loader of his tractor, and so he's driving by me one day, and he stops and he goes, hey, he goes, throw that thing in here, you know, and I'm like, no, I said, I just said, because he would have no idea what the SEALs are. I said, I'm one of the Marines. I'm training for boot camp or whatever, and he's like, oh, okay, kind of shook his head and drove off.
Where was your recruiter located at there in North Carolina?
In North Wilkesboro, North Carolina.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
Just curious.
Yep.
That he didn't know what the SEALs were.
Well, I mean, he knew, but he knew nothing about them. I mean, because he was, I mean, most regular Navy guys, they don't know, I mean, it's just one of those things that it's like.
So in the day then, if you didn't know, how would you find out about it then? How would they get guys to join SEALs?
I guess, I don't know, word of mouth, just watching movies, and hey, people, like I said, I looked it up in the encyclopedia. We had actual encyclopedias back then. And I saw something, there was a show back in the 80s called PM Magazine.
Yeah.
And they had just a short clip of people being tortured. And I was like, whoa. And so we had two channels at my house. 2 and 12. And so I was on whatever channel it was, 2, I guess, and it was grainy, and it just showed these guys like, crawling through the sand and in the water and this, that, and the other thing. And I don't know why it appealed to me, but I was like, well, that looks pretty tough, and that's why I was like, okay, let me ask about the SEALs. So,
So you bypassed. See, here you're a master sergeant. You're used to giving orders, just not taking them. You have to define MOS. So
okay, well, that's
and buds.
your okay. So military specialty that's the A school in the Army. So basically, your A school is the Navy version. MOS, your military specialty, is the Army version. And so, uh, do you want me to get into
Well,
what
no,
I'm?
we
Okay.
actually, we can dive into that because you also said buds too. A lot of people become experts. I watch Don Shipley's videos all the time where he goes out and he busts all the fake SEALs that say they were in this buds class. And amazingly, a lot of people were in the same buds class that was featured on the television documentary talking about. I think it was Buds 213 or something. So, what's buds?
It's basic underwater demolition SEAL training. That's the SEALs basic training basically. So once you got done with your A school, and if you pass that test in boot camp, the swim, the run, the pull ups, push ups, then you got a shot. They'd send you to buds, and you got a shot at one shot at making it. Through SEAL training. So
So let's
How long is that training?
it's depends on when you get there. I got there right after a class had classed up, and a class classes up every 6 weeks, and so I had an extra 6 weeks of training there. And then the class is about 6 months is once it starts up. So I had about 7.5 months of extra.
Yeah, let's talk about getting into that though. So you go through the obviously very tough and extensive photographer's mate school.
Mm.
So
This is back when we're developing film in a canister,
yeah.
and doing it on a machine and then burning the pictures. And I mean, it was very interesting. Don't get me wrong. And it was in Pensacola, Florida, so very nice area. I'm 18 years old, and I mean, so I mean, it wasn't that bad, and it was short, 10 weeks. So I could see light at the end of the tunnel.
Hey
And
Murph,
So
you
what?
know who this sounds like?
Who?
Guy Knopfsinger.
Yeah, yeah. He was
That's
naval
one of
intel.
our other guests. He actually ended up, I think, retiring out of the reserves as a '05, I think it was. But he started off life as a photographer's mate.
no way.
Well, and you felt, Kevin, you saw that light at the end of the tunnel, and you figured it wasn't a train this time, right?
Yeah. No, I was like, all right, I can, I mean, because some of them got stuck with like gunner's mate 6 months.
Oh,
Oh yeah, six
Really?
months of A school, and now you go to SEAL training. So man, just a wasted 6 months because you're not going to be doing this. Because I wasn't planning on not making it. I mean, I had no plan B. It was like, no, it's not a
see, and I learned that from
Not
a
an
buddy of
option.
mine who was actually on a SEAL team. He said, "I stabbed the lifeboat." I said,
absolutely.
there you go, steamer. There is no going back. There is no plan B. There's only one plan.
It's
That's it.
death or I make it. I
Yeah.
mean, that was pretty much it. I mean,
Well,
I'm not going back.
let's talk about that then. So you get out of your photographer's mate school in Pensacola. Where do you go to take the PT test?
Well, the PT test was in a boot camp, actually, Navy boot camp. I went to Orlando to Navy boot camp. There's no Navy base there anymore, but when I was, went in, that was there in Great Lakes was where you went to Navy boot camp. And so I went to Orlando, and I don't know, probably halfway through, they're like, okay, all the guys signed up for Dive Fair. That was the name of the program. Get your swimming trunks and your towel and your T-shirt, and we're headed to the gym, And so then it was just a SEAL was there. That was the motivator. He's like, okay, so first evolution's a swim, and you got back then it was a 300-yard swim. You had a breaststroke or side stroke, one of the two. And I knew
What
how
was
to
the?
do
Do you remember
really
what the
either.
time limit was on that?
I think
Was it just a matter of completing it, or
I
did
think,
you have to?
no, it's 7 minutes or something. I mean, it
Okay,
wasn't like it ain't
it wasn't a
Olympic.
relaxing. Yeah,
No, it wasn't fun at all because I'm from the mountains of North Carolina, and I can swim across a creek, but
a
as
lake.
Can't quit
This is
swimming
like a
across the
lake.
damn ocean.
as far as like being an Olympic swimmer, I'm far from it. And so I'm actually in high school, my buddy, they had a swimming pool behind their house. They live in town. I live out in the middle of nowhere. And Andy's his name. And I was like, Andy, I said, you think I can come over to your house? Because it says I got to do breaststroke or side stroke for this swimming test, And so I go over there and swim his I don't know, 10-yard swimming pool back and forth, and try to figure out how to do this. So that's the only real swimming I did before I went to boot camp. And
Hey, just out of curiosity, did you ever find out later? I know you didn't know at the time, but did you ever find out later why it was the breaststroke or the side stroke? Was that designed to test muscles, or was that just their way of doing it? Why, not like the regular crawl, like the overhand crawl, where you swim?
Well, because you don't swim that way. Like if you're swimming into the beach to do a mission, you're not going to crawl because it's too much movement and noise and everything. So you breaststroke because you can stay under the water, or you side stroke and you can also stay under the water, and you can go forever doing a side stroke. You can swim for miles and miles, and you switch to breaststroke, and so. But yeah, that's why it's there's no crawl.
So you do the swim first. You said swim, run, pull-ups, push-ups. What else?
That was it. So I mean, it was back then. It's worse now actually, but I think it was a 1.5 mile run after the swim, and then you got to do I think 12 pull-ups, and then I can't remember how many push-ups, but it was over like 60. So I mean, it wasn't a super hard test, but after swimming and running and all that,
Well,
it
the
was decent.
pull-ups too. I mean, those are dead hang. You got to
Dead
start
hang.
dead hang and pull
Yeah.
up, right?
So basically, the Army PT, they've took all that out of the Army PT test, so everybody can pass.
There you go, Morgan.
The soft bigotry of low expectations. I think
Pretty
somebody
much.
said that one time. Hey, so there's a time limit for each one, but then there's also an overall time limit to get all of them done within a certain time, right?
Well, you just move from one event to the other, and I mean, you have a time limit for the run, you have a time limit for the swim, and
Okay.
they give you time to move in between each event, and
Okay.
and if you pass, hey, you get your orders for straight out of A school, to go try buds.
So how many people did dive fair with you?
There were 2 guys in my boot camp that were on the same program. Uh,
So there was just 3 of you then
there were
that went
3,
through the
yeah, but the 3 of us that went and took the test, I think. There were other guys from other
right.
companies, that were going through boot camp, and they came from their companies, but 3 guys in my company, which was about 150 guys or something.
So, but everybody who was there for that dive fair test that day, how many people do you think were there?
I would say probably 20.
How many passed?
They don't tell us, you know what I'm saying? And so, I mean, we just, hey, I knew the times, and I knew, they didn't even tell me, they just said, hey, I knew I'd passed. And so, they said, okay. And then took your name and did everything else. And then I received my orders, right when I was getting ready to graduate from photo school to buds. So,
Oh, cool. Well, that had to make you feel good, right?
yeah,
What
yeah.
about your other 2 buddies that were there with you? Did they make it?
One of them eventually did. He was hurt in buds, and I think it took him about 6 classes to get through. But he eventually, because I mean, if you get hurt, like legitimately break your leg or something like that, they will keep you around to let you heal up and try it again, or to start over. And so he got hurt like right probably during Hell Week or something, and I think he broke his leg or something. And then about 6, he healed up and he ended up making it through, but just one guy. So
Dang.
Well, we're going to talk about your buds class too, because talk about attrition. But let's talk about it. So, what was it like? You're graduating and you get your orders. I mean, was that? Did you go, oh great, or did you go, oh shit, what have I gotten myself into?
no, I was training the whole time I was in photo school. We would do their little PT, physical training, and then in the evenings I'd go do my own, runs, and where I could swim. I'd try to get in the pool, and this, that, and the other thing. But it was my own. All I knew to do is was run and push ups and sit ups and swim a little bit. So
Right. So you get your orders. Where do you go?
well, you go to Coronado, California. That's where
That
you go.
is a friend of mine retired as the chief of police there. He was a assistant chief at San Diego. His retirement job was chief on Coronado Island.
Oh, it's a beautiful place.
Rough work too, but but that's the thing. I don't know if they changed it, but there's like only one way into Coronado and one way off. You know that big bridge that goes across.
Mhm.
Yep.
Hey,
Coronado
when
Bridge.
before you joined the military, have you traveled much outside of North Carolina before that?
No, I'd been to Florida to the beach because most people from Appalachia go down to like Panama City or
Mhm.
whatever if they're going to go to the beach, and that was pretty much it. So
That's kinda cool because you're getting to see all over the United States just by going through the training.
yeah, absolutely.
So, what was it like though? You show up in California. I mean, you'd obviously heard about it, but what was it like getting out there that first time and realizing? I mean, you get out there and you probably got just a little time right before Hell Week starts, right?
Oh well, I got there right
Oh, that's right.
after
You
the
got 6 weeks. Yeah.
6 weeks. But what's terrible is this doesn't count toward the SEAL training. It's just extra. So it's called pre-training. So every morning at 4 in the morning, you get up and you go swim for 2 hours in the swimming pool. And I mean, it's October when I get there, and people think California is all sunny and warm. Not at 4 in the morning, and they they put you in these like it's a cattle shower, like what they run cows through. This is back then. I don't know what they've got now, but they had all these nozzles on these pipes, and it was like probably 30 feet by 20 feet. And they'd pack as many of you in this thing as possible, and then they'd turn this cold water on and just shower you with this cold water for like 30 seconds, to shower you off to get into the swimming pool. But not only that, but then you would go get on the bleachers, and then one of the instructors would have a water hose on the cold, and just spray in the face, and just it was super cold. You couldn't wait to get in the water, and there was a reason for that because that water was super warm. When you got in it, you're just like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to get in that swimming
Well,
pool.
see, and that's what I was going to ask you about too, because that's kind of the psychological thing. Because the water's going to be cold and everything, but you cannot have that flinch. Look, I got to tell you, I'm at my age now. I'm a wuss. We'll go on vacation or go somewhere, even in Cancun. I'm like, I got to wade into that thing. It's like, oh, it's still. But you guys have to be able to dive in and not even think about it. It's just get in. From a psychological standpoint, you can't be thinking about the cold or the shivering or anything else. It's like it's just another place you go, right?
Well, it's them getting you used to being miserable. I mean, because which of us in high school and all that, when have you been miserable? Actually, I mean, unless you're like from Alaska and you grew up packing doll sheep out or something or moose, you're really not. You don't really understand because combat's miserable. A lot of it's just misery, and so they're prepping you from the very moment you get there to be miserable and to be able to take it. And
Right.
so
Yeah.
that's the whole point,
That's the
So
endurance and the stamina.
that's endurance and stamina, yeah,
Yeah, brother.
and the mindset.
The mind, that's the key thing right there too, because you've got to. That's one thing I've always been impressed with talking to folks, in the different branches. But when you get to that elite level, and all of them like pararescue, Delta, SEALs, Force Recon or whatever, but you got to get to. I think you can be physically the same, but it's that mindset that's going to differentiate a lot of people from the ones who make it versus the ones that don't.
Yeah, I mean, you can be the biggest stud out there, swimmer, runner, athlete, whatever. If you don't have it in your mind, and actually, there was a few in my class that were way faster and way could swim faster, and this, that, and the other thing, and you're just like, man, I wish I was 6'4" and 240, but they end up quitting, and so it's just like it's all in your mind.
Hey, yeah, but you bring up another thing though too. You said you're 5'9". A lot of people think that a lot of these folks on special forces are like these hulking 6'2", 6'3", offensive kind of big tall linemen, and that's really not the truth. In fact, sometimes size is actually a detriment, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is because it takes a lot of fuel for that guy. I mean, it's a little guy. He can go on nothing, and go and go and go. And I mean, I have been in situations where it's 130 degrees in combat, and you've got to get stuff done. And then like a lot of the big guys would, I mean, nothing against them, but would lock up and go down, because they got to have so much food and so much water and this, that, and the other thing. Whereas little guys, I mean, it doesn't take a whole lot, and so, I don't know. I read in the manual one time, the optimal SEAL size is about 5'8", 160 pounds.
Wow.
So, I mean,
Hey, let me tell you, the worst butt kicking I ever got was from a guy a lot smaller than me.
Yeah.
It's not the size of the package.
That's true. So when you ask about when I first showed up there, so they give you these greens. Back then it was they gave you CB I guess a uniform, a CB uniform, and it's just green. There's no camo. It's you're not worthy to wear camo yet, so it's just a CB's green clothes. There's no like cargo pockets. It's just and so they give you about 6 pairs of these things, and you got to get the name tags sewn on your name, on the pocket and on the pocket of the pants and on the back. And so I'm like, well, where do you get this done? And they're like, well, it's a place called AB Bright's, and it's just down the road, and it's Imperial Beach, and I was like, okay. I said, well, so I said, they're like, no, it's just right down the road here,
Right down the road. I see something coming.
Yeah. So I'm like, well,
right
okay.
down the road is relative. How far was down the road?
12 miles. So I had I didn't have a bag. I had these greens and I had them in my arms. And so the beach, you go straight down the beach. They said, yeah. I said, it's just straight down and the road parallels the beach. So I'm like, well, I'll just walk, I mean, it ain't that. They said it's right down the road. Well, in a car, it's right down the road. So I walked 12 miles. I mean, after, 8 miles, I'm like, holy smokes, this isn't right down the road. So I get to AB Bright's and I turn all these greens in to get my name tapes and this, that, and the other thing. And they take them all. And there's a taco stand there and it's 5 roll tacos for $1. And man, I ate like 20 tacos. And and then walk back to Bud's, 12 miles.
Oh, geez!
Yeah,
all in one day. Yeah,
all in one day. I get back, and the guy that told me that, he's like, I'm like, bro. I said that wasn't just right down the road. I said, he goes, well, he said you walked. I said, yeah. I said you said it's right down the road. They all laughed, and it was a big joke. And then I got a ride to pick them up though the next time. So.
Darn right. Holy cow.
Oh,
talk about an extra inning workout there. Holy
yeah. See, I'm always concerned when somebody goes, yeah, it's just right around the corner. Well, that's relative,
Yeah.
What does that really mean? So you get these things on. So what's that 6 weeks like? I mean, is it just basically repetitive? Is the same stuff every day? Are you doing anything in addition to just the physical training? Are they doing any pre-course work, or are you just there to stay in shape, getting ready for your class?
Yeah, it's all brutal training. I mean, you're running the O course, you're swimming every morning. I mean, not on the weekends. I mean, if you want to do stuff on the weekends, you can, but so it's just every day during the week. Your day begins at 4 a.m. at the swimming pool. And I mean, you're at the swimming pool at 4, and you got to run for a mile to get to the swimming pool where you're at on the base, and so you form up in a group of pre-trainees. You got white T-shirts because before Hell Week, you wear white T-shirts. And then so you run to the pool, you swim, and then you run back. And then your next evolution is whatever, probably a 4-mile run on the beach. And then after lunch, you do the obstacle course. And then but every day begins with that swim. So.
Well, that's the first letter in SEALs, right? C. So
yeah, you're going to be able to swim when you get out of that place.
So how many were in your pre-training class?
Wait a minute, I got to correct something.
Yeah,
our listeners are going to hear you. First letter in SEALs is C. Now it's an S that represents the word C.
No, the first
Morgan really
word is C.
He can spell. He doesn't think SEAL starts with a C. Just want to clarify that. There.
Well, I thought he meant C like SEA. C.
Yeah, C. That's what Steve understands. See, Steve, he understands. He gets
that's what S stands for, C. But so I thought that's what he meant. But yeah, I was hoping he didn't mean C.
Air, land, and who knows? Pretty close. Pretty soon it'll be space. Sea, air, land, and space. SEALs in space. I can see that's going to be a new adventure series.
There you go.
He's from Kansas. We just got to make sure. We're just looking out for him. Hold his hand.
Yeah. But anyway, we're talking about how many people were in your pre-training class.
I would say probably 40.
Now, but the people who are in your pre-training class, will they become part of your Buds class, or is everybody when you say they class up, it's like who's ever there when the next class starts, that's everybody who's in the class, right?
Yep. So all the pre-trainees, all the guys that got there right after that class, class 159 had classed up. We were all standing out in they call it the grinder. It's where these little footprints are. These little, they look like fins, little like at attention, little footprints, and you stand on those little footprints, these little fins. And so really our pre-training class, the first day we're standing out there, you're in civilian clothes because you haven't got your greens yet. And there was a guy standing in front of me. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, male cheerleaders are strong and, pretty beefy guys, Well, this guy's in front of me and he's standing there and he's got a male cheerleader jacket on. The back of it says male cheerleader. And I mean, I don't know. I'm just kind of like, this is 1988, or 87, I guess. No, it's 88. Yeah. And I'm like, hey, man, I said, you might want to lose that jacket before they come out here, And he's like, what? I'm like, well, I mean, I don't know, male cheerleader, and he's like, what? And he told me all about his experience as a male cheerleader and, and he was real proud of it, and I'm like, yeah, I know, man, I got no issues with it, but you don't know what's coming out of that door. And it was, basically you're in an arena and you're surrounded. There's these doors up here and these instructors come out and they come out howling at us and yelling. And I mean, it's not fun, so they run around and they're in front of me and then they turn and they see this guy's jacket, and I'm just like, oh no. So they're just like, male cheerleader, and I mean, that guy is tortured relentlessly from the second they saw that until I never saw him again. So, I mean, yeah, that was your initiation basically into.
How long did he last?
I never saw him again. I mean, I
saw him after that first day.
Saw him out processing. That was pretty much it, So
wow,
never even. I mean, we lost people all through pre-training. It wasn't like that was the first one we lost, but it was all through pre-training. You lose people because it's miserable. It's just as miserable as buds, because you're doing the same stuff, So
you tried to help the guy out,
I did. I mean, I was looking out for the guy. I'm like, hey, it's my teammate here, I'm just going to be like, hey, dude, I mean, I got it, just get rid of that, I mean, we already got a bullseye on us and man, you got
career advice, dude. You don't make yourself a bigger target than we already are.
You want to be the gray man and not the one in the movie just now. You want to be the guy that they don't really even remember.
And you've had playing sports in high school, the football and the baseball. You've had teamwork ingrained in you, so it's all about that's the same thing. Well, it's not the same thing.
Funny you mentioned Gray Man. We'll have to talk about that later. I read all of Mark Greeny's novels. Just finished it up, and we'll talk later too about whether or not that's. I saw the Netflix one, or I've started seeing most of it, so we'll have to talk later about what you think of that. But now, hey, the other thing though too that's infamous in Buds is the bell. Tell us about the bell.
So the bell, they don't even bother to bring it out for pre-trainees. so basically, your pre-training, if you want to quit, you gotta like go to the place there's a portable bell and there's the bell right in front of the instructor's office there. And so if you want to quit as a pre-trainee, you got to go to the instructor's door, beat on the door, and be like, hey, I'm ready to quit. And so you can ring the bell right there. But they have a portable one that they bring with them everywhere you go when once you class up. And the bell is if you ring it 3 times, that means you voluntarily quit basically, and then you put your helmet down on the ground, and then you're out processed.
What is the thinking behind having that bell? I mean, it's almost like. I don't want to say like you're not really rubbing somebody's face in it, but it's kind of like, but at that point, everybody knows you're quitting. Is it kind of mentally to say, look, don't be the guy who rings the bell, don't quit? Because it's almost, I don't want to say it's the walk of shame, but it's almost, you've done all of the stuff and you got to go ring that bell. And then at that point, everybody knows.
I put it this way. When those people were to that point, they didn't care what they had to do to get out of that place. Cause I mean, it was just, that wasn't in their head. They had a plan B. I'll put it that way. Their plan B, they're when you're laying there freezing and thinking about, man, I really don't have to be doing this. I've got a good job at my whatever that I could go and be a boatswain's mate. I like boatswain's mate. I like tying knots and, whatever it is, their plan B they had thought about. or I'm missing my kids' birthdays and this and that and the other thing, and I don't have to be doing this. And if you go in there with that mindset, you're not going to make it. You have to go in there and go, hey, I am going to drown, freeze to death, whatever it is. It doesn't matter what you do to me. You're going to have to kill me. And that's how you got to go into that. You go in there like that and they can't beat you down. I mean, it's just, hey, you may get hurt or something and not make it, but you have to have that type of attitude. And so the bell, I mean, I never even thought about it. I don't even remember seeing it that much, because I wasn't going to look at that thing, And so when people they would run to that bell. They were so ready to get out of that place.
Wow.
Hey, where did this look? It takes a mindset to do this. Where did your mindset come from? I mean, because look, yeah, you're in North Carolina, but you're growing up, you're hunting and fishing and stuff, but you're still not facing the type of danger you're going to face later in your career to have to need that mindset. But where do you think part of this mindset came from? You're like we said, it's either death or success. There's no in between.
Yeah. So my grandfather was with Teddy Roosevelt at San Juan Hill. He's a Rough Rider.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and so I can only assume that I don't know because I had a couple uncles that were in the military, but my dad was the youngest of four brothers during Vietnam, and it was that whole we don't want to send all the brothers, because of the World War II, brothers that died, and so my dad wasn't in the military, and I only assume that it came from my grandfather, and plus, I mean, I'm Scotch Irish, and like the Vikings raided Scotland, and then so my mother's name's McNeil. And so a lot of the McNeils in Scotland have there are a lot of Viking blood in them, and so on their flag is a Viking ship. The McNeil banner is a Viking ship, And so I don't know. I mean, the only thing I can think of is I'm in a line of those guys, that's like, hey, this is what I want to do, and that's my career path. And I think honestly, God gives people different talents for doing different things, and because people go, man, how can you, shoot people, and I'm like, well, how can you bake bread or how can you be a farmer and do whatever, be an electrician.
How could you bring yourself down to be a trooper?
Yeah, I mean,
Wait, hold on. I was trying to be respectful, Murph, but okay, we'll get there too. So, but
right.
Hey, but no, the one story I remember, a few stories about Teddy Roosevelt, but that dude was so tough. He was actually shot, I believe, in the chest or something. Still got up and gave a speech, and did that. But he get the man in the arena, one of the most famous speeches that he gave, and it's like, you got because you got to be that man in the arena. You got to be that guy or girl in the arena, the one who does it.
Yeah, I mean that's it. That's it. You can talk about everything else, but even if the man fails, he was in the arena. I mean, that's it. I mean, I have no problem with people that, I have more respect for somebody that goes, yeah, I went to Buds and I didn't make it than somebody that tries to, I don't know, put
Blow
on
themselves up more than what they are.
Well, yeah, it's just like, look, yeah, I got hurt. Hey, okay. Well, that's, it is what it is. But rarely will you hear anybody say, no, I quit. It's always I got hurt or, it's just one of those, I would be checking people as a game warden, and they'd be like, I'd say I was in the Navy. I didn't say I was a SEAL, and they'd be like, yeah, I was in the Navy. I was a SEAL. And I'm like, oh, and be like, well, really, what Bud's class were you in? And then they're like, oh no, and then
7. I was in 7.
No, it'd be like 5326 or something, some weird number, and you're like, oh, okay. Well, there's only been like 200. So what they're like, well,
It's classified. It's classified.
It's above your pay grade or whatever, and I'm just like, well, I don't know. I've never heard of that class number. And well, actually I was hurt and whatever. And yeah, just some excuse. And so, but I always appreciate people that go, yeah, man, I was about to freeze to death and I quit. It's like, yeah, it was cold. So I got it.
I'll tell you who used to live not too far from me, had the chance to meet him a couple of times, was Richard Marcinko.
Yep.
And that was one of the great stories because I asked him, I heard about it. So I had the chance to talk with him. I asked him, I said, there were only 3 SEAL teams and you create this other one called SEAL Team 6. He says, why'd you call it SEAL Team 6 when there was no 4 and 5? He said, because I wanted the bastards to wonder where SEAL Teams 4 and 5 were, even though they didn't exist, So, I mean, but again, it goes back to that mindset. So let's kind of go back to Buds a little bit too, because it's interesting. it's a very similar interview we're having with you that we have with other people because they talk about going through their academy or the things that they do. And this is very similar to you. I mean, you have to put in the time and the work before you get the chance to go off and do the fun stuff. Quote, I put air quotes around fun stuff. But so you're in this, you're in your pre-training and everything. Did you ever think it was going to end? I mean, you feel it's like almost like Dante's Inferno. You're in purgatory. You're not going anywhere.
No, I'll be honest with you. I was there for that. I mean, I knew what it was going to be. I didn't know, I didn't know exactly, but it was everything that I thought it would be. It was, you're just like, well, I mean, I asked to be here. It's not like I was told to come here. And so, uh, I don't think I ever once went, man, this is taking forever. There was a process to it. And the process was these guys are trying to get you ready to class up. And it sucks getting up at 4 or 3:30 in the morning and running over here and doing all this stuff. But the way I looked at it is like, hey, I'll be ready whenever our classes up. And we had the date when we were classing up. So it wasn't like it was a surprise. It was like, hey, I mean, it was very structured and how it was going to happen. So, I don't know.
Tell us about your last weekend of freedom before Buds hits.
Well, you have a big class up party and everybody gets mohawks and, because then you got to shave it all off, because when you class up, all the hair's gone. And so, yeah, we had a big party and right there in the compound and just got ready to roll, So,
Well, let's talk about then the first day. So you go to bed in a sense the night before. Just kind of walk us through what happens now.
well, it's really not very different than the pre-training. I mean, hey, they have on the schedule, you're going to be so and so. You're going to probably a room inspection to start it off, and that means you're getting wet and sandy. And because room's never good enough,
Never, ever.
they'll reach in their pants, pull out some hairs, and throw them in your sink. And I mean that happened in our class.
Well, wait a minute.
We got a visual on that. Let's just leave it at that.
They were curly.
Oh my God.
And the guy they did it to, he actually ended up retiring and being a U.S. Marshal. And the guy said, "What is this in this sink?" And he looks into the sink and he leans over and he and blows them out. And he goes, "What?" So,
how did that go over with the instructor? Did he say you got me, or did he
Nope.
did he pay for it?
He pointed at the ocean and said, "Hit the surf." So that means you go hit the surf, you go dive in the ocean, you get out and you roll in the like sand and make yourself a sugar cookie is what it's called. And you come back and you better be a good sugar cookie or they'll send you back, And so you got to be covered all over in sand and just looking miserable. And then you pass. Okay. And then now you start your day. Yeah. You don't change. You start your day, which is, hey, your pool evolution. You're going to do knot tying at the pool or whatever. And then, for the first 2 or 3 days, and then your test is on the 4th day. And then your underwater swim, you're practicing to do that. So, I mean, that's what you're that's the second week, actually. The first week, you probably go run an O course and do a 4-mile time run your first day.
So, but you call it Hell Week. So tell us about Hell Week. What's the? I'm assuming that's the first week, right? That you get in and they start off. Or when is Hell Week?
No, you've lost probably a third of the class before Hell Week even starts, because Hell Week's the 6th week.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah. And so you've done all your knot tying where you're in a tower and you dive down about 30 feet and you're tying knots on a rope and showing them to the instructor. And then you either pass or you fail. You got to tie 5 knots. You got to do a 50-meter underwater swim. And you got to pass so many time runs, so many O courses and this, that, and the other thing, so many ocean swims before Hell Week. So you've lost a third of the class before Hell Week even starts.
So is this all pass fail? In other words, like if you're down there not tying and you don't tie the knots, do you fail right then?
You fail. Yeah. And
if you fail, you're out.
Well, they'll probably go, "Hey, pull your head out of your butt and get back down there." So if a guy can do it, then they'll let him do it. But it's that day. So 50-meter underwater swim, if you don't do it, you pass out, you fail automatically. And I mean, a lot of people would just kind of be going along, and then they just kind of slow down in the pool, and they pull them out, and that's it. You fail. And then they tie your hands behind your back, tie your feet up, chuck you in the swimming pool with about 50 other people. And I mean, you know, it's like a shark tank. I mean, you know, people are thrashing and trying to just live. And you
Is
got
that
to,
just survival swimming at that point is what you're doing?
well, it's called drown proofing is what it
Okay.
is, you know, because we always heard it was some guy in Vietnam. He was tied up, and he had the only way he could get away from the Viet Cong was to swim across a river with his hands and feet tied up. And so that, I mean, whether that's true or not, I can't say, but that's what we heard. And so that's why they, at least, it made us feel better about having to having to do this. We're like, well, we might get tied up and thrown in a river. So yeah, the worst part was because there was 50 of you in this swimming pool, you know, and I mean, you got to stay in the deep end, because if you touch the bottom, you fail. So you're trying to just, you know, get a breath, you know, and live. So you got to like do this for probably 10, 15 minutes without touching the bottom, with all your hands and feet tied, and people kicking you in the face, and you just about to get a breath, and somebody kicks you and knocks you back under the water, and now you got to try to get back to the surface. So all that is before Hell Week. And then you get done with the 15 minutes or 10, 15 minutes of having to fight for air. Now you got to swim the length of the pool and back without touching the bottom. And then when you get back, you've got to like dive down and get a mask off the bottom of the swimming pool with your teeth, bring it to the surface, and show it to an instructor. And they have to point to you and give you a thumbs up for you.
And you folks can't see this. He looks.
Oh,
Kevin's doing this right now, and you can see he looks like almost like a seal. I mean, the animal kind. I got it in my mouth. Can I get a fish now? It's almost like, here you go.
That's exactly what it is. And a lot of times they'll not look at you on purpose. So now you got to like you go back underwater, because you fought to get above the water to show them this mask, and now you just slowly sink back under. And you know, and then you got to fight back up, and sometimes you got to spit that mask out and get some air, and then you got to dive back down and get the mask. Because sometimes it took 20 minutes to get them to see you with this mask in your mouth.
How deep is the pool?
12 feet, I think. I mean, it's probably deeper now, but back then it was an outdoor pool. It's right by the cattle showers that I was telling you about. I mean, this is the place where this happened at, and this is in the winter, so it's cold too. So you're just waiting. Because they'll kick a bunch of us in. Your buddy ties you up, and you're sitting on the side of the pool, and the instructors come along, just kick you in the back, kick you into the swimming pool. Now you can't touch the bottom. I mean, it's just that whole evolution starts. So from beginning to end, you're probably in the pool for a good hour, with all this tied up and this, that, and the other thing, and you absolutely fail if you touch the bottom.
So with the people that are failing at this and they're passing out and sinking to the bottom, who's going in to get them?
The instructors. There's instructors in the swimming pool, and nice enough to splash water in your face and stuff when you're about to get a breath of air, and recovering bodies off the bottom. Pretty much pulling you to the surface. They get you to the side, pump you out, spew water. And not that anybody's drowned. I don't know the definition of drown is, if it's just inhaling water or what, but I did see some on the side when I was like getting a breath, and they're all getting pumped out. So it was not a fun evolution. And like I said, this is all before Hell Week.
Hey, in my wimpish life, that qualifies as drowning.
Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah. So, but you just have to go to another place. You got to go to your happy place, like Happy Gilmore. You really do have to just go somewhere else, because you're basically in hell when you're kicking each other and fighting and clawing just to get a breath of air. So,
and now, does the firearms training start at the same time, at a different time? So when do they start? When do you start getting the pew-pews?
So that's right after Hell Week is second phase. And and I think it's changed now. It's probably third phase for that stuff. But when I was in, it was second phase. And then you load up and you go to a place called La Posta. It's outside of San Diego. It's this, I think it's a national forest out there, and there's no water. So what they do is they truck called water buffaloes, these big old like tanks of water out there for you so they can get you wet. So you'll lay under this water buffalo, and they'll crank this thing on and just totally soak you, your sleeping bag, and everything else. And now you go sleep in the bush. So I mean,
Well,
that's
let's hold off before we dive into too much of that because we can't bypass Hell Week. So
okay.
you're coming up. So you're doing all of this other stuff. By the time you get to Hell Week, you said you've already lost a third of your class, right?
Yep. Yep.
All right. How many did you start off with in your buds class?
So we probably started 82. I mean, it's been a long time, so I didn't really get the roster, but I mean, we had, it wasn't a huge class. There are bigger ones and there are smaller ones, but ours is around 80, 82 people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you probably lost around what, 27, 28 people already. So,
yep. So, I mean, we're already like, all right, you've lost quite a few people, just
is
in
that,
all the,
as you know from later, is that normal? Was that exceptionally high, or is that's
no.
normal?
I mean, it's pretty normal. I mean, I think nowadays, because the screening is so much more,
Precise?
yeah,
Selective.
nowadays, because I mean, they have a whole program that you've got to go through just to go to SEAL training. And I mean, I'm talking before you even get in the military. And I mean, and then once you get in, it's a very well run, more professional deal now than it was back then. Because back then, like I said, I came out of photographer's mate school, and I could have went straight there. If I'd have got there a week earlier, I'd have went straight into a class and classed up. So, not nearly being as prepared as I was for my 6 weeks of pre-training. So, it's way better run nowadays.
All right. Well, let's get into Hell Week now. So you become the sugar cookies. I like that. I like that saying. I mean, you've done all this stuff. So is there any preparation for? I mean, it's on the schedule, so it's coming, right? But is there anything special, or is it just like you wake up one morning and it's like it begins?
No. So they do this thing called breakout, and it's it's going to be that night. It's a nighttime evolution. What happens, and sometime in the night of you're supposed to be starting Hell Week, and they usually wait because everybody just tries to stay awake and man, I'm not going to go to sleep tonight because I know it's tonight, and but and you're laying in your rack clothed with all your clothes on, and your boots and waiting for this thing to happen. And so, but you eventually midnight comes around, you're like, man, they're kind of getting tired, and so you'll doze off. And I just happened to be, I went to the bathroom. I was like, well, I got to go to the bathroom. So I go to the bathroom. I'm standing there taking a leak in one of the urinals, and I just looked to my right, and there's an instructor standing there with an M60 machine gun, like pointed at me. Yeah.
Damn.
And he's this huge, his name is, I mean, he's retired now, Rocky Carlock, huge guy, big barrel chested frogman, blonde hair, looked like a movie star. And so he's standing there with an M60 machine gun pointed at me with the rounds across his hand. And of course they're blanks. And he just opens up on me. And he's like 10 feet from me, So I go running out of this bathroom, zipping up and, run outside. And I mean, it's on. Now all instructors are all through the barracks throwing like artillery simulators and just blowing stuff up and this, that, and the other thing. And I mean, and the machine guns are going and they're squirting you with a water hose as you're running outside, you're getting this in the face. And then, they got you in push-up position. And so you're doing push-ups. They're squirting you with water hoses. And one of the instructors throws a artillery simulator, and it lands, and I didn't see it. And it landed really close to me and blew up. And it blew up kind of the side of my face. I mean, I won't say blow up, but it went off really close and cut me on the side of my eye. And so I'm bleeding and, whatever, and I'm still doing the push-ups, and they're squirting me, and one of the instructors sees it. And he's like, whoa, he goes, come here. And I stand up, and he goes, I think you may need stitches for that, and he goes, what do you think, son? He goes, we'll roll you to the next class. I said, heck no. I said, I'm okay. I'm good. So
I'm just missing an eye. I've lost my eyesight. Can't hear, but I'm good to go.
I'm good to go, man. So anyway, took off.
Was there any damage from that though?
No, it just cut me. It was just it just blew up, and I don't know, it sent a piece of something and cut me. And so anyway, I just kind of, it quit bleeding, and I never got stitches for it or nothing. And just packed some, obviously sand in it or something, because that happens all the time in Hell Week. And so so you grab your boats. This is the first evolution, and so you're carrying these IBSs, inflatable boat small is what it's called, and you got a
Oh, I
6
thought
minute.
it was Murph thought it was irritable bowel syndrome, so
Well,
that's his definition of
That's the way I
IBS.
feel every time I'm on here with Morgan. I have IBS.
well, everybody has that irritable bowel syndrome as this is going on because your guts are churning because
Oh man.
God knows what's going to happen next, and so your boat crew, which is my guys, my size, are paired up. Basically, your boat crew when this starts, and so my guys are we're the Smurf crew, we're the smallest crew, and so you take off running toward these rocks that are down toward the Hotel Del Coronado. You got this boat on your head, you got your paddles in the boat, and you're running with this boat on your head. Well, I notice, it's a mile down to these rocks. And I notice this thing keeps getting heavier and heavier. and now it's like everybody's passing us. And I'm just like, what the heck's going on, And so by this point, everybody in my boat crew's quit except for me and one other guy. So the two of us are carrying our boat.
What do you mean they
They
quit?
left. They just, hey, that's it, and rang the bell and was gone. So me and
Dang.
one other guy are carrying this boat.
They left you hanging.
Left us hanging, on
Oh
the
my
way to the
God.
rocks, because you're going to go do this thing called rock portage, and the whole thing is you're paddling these boats. No helmets, no nothing, into these rocks that are below the Hotel Del Coronado with these massive waves crashing in on these things. And it's just 6 foot waves, and so they'll pick you up and smash you on these rocks. These coral rocks they've got out here, for a break for the Hotel Del Coronado. So that's the first evolution you do in Hell Week. That was what we did. And so you got to paddle, and then the instructors will be on the beach with these lights that they call in like aircraft with, And so when those come together, you're the next one in line. You gotta land that boat on those rocks, and it's a disaster. Like every time, you can't really land them on it and be successful without getting smashed on these rocks. So the whole point is just
Well, the coral sucks too. I mean, coral is not like rock. Coral cuts the shit out of you.
Yeah, they're big brown rocks, and they're not like the ones above. The part of it above water's not got the barnacles on it, but under the water, it's covered in these barnacles, and so you're just getting swashed on these barnacled rocks, underwater, and then you're trying to claw your way up, get your boat up on the rocks, and then you got to launch back off of these rocks to go back out to sea, and then you do this all night. That's what you're doing. You're going out, and then the next crew comes in and they get crushed. And then you're just in a line of guys getting crushed, getting on these rocks. And this is before helmets. This is before any of that, So, we had injuries. People lost people on that. So that was your first evolution in Hell Week.
Wow.
Yeah.
How many people did you lose that night?
I don't know. We lost a lot.
Well, you lost at least 2 that we know of. The guys who left you
4.
hanging.
4 in my boat crew.
There were 6 of you to start?
6 of us. Yeah.
Oh, and 4 of them bailed on you.
4 of them bailed.
Are the instructors on the
so we
beach
had to get
yelling
put in
at you?
another crew because of the next size up, and which was pretty nice until they started quitting too, and then you got more weight on your head, from the little bit taller guys, So
Are the instructors yelling at you from the beach when you're trying to land on the rocks?
they don't have to because they're just watching,
and laughing.
Well, they're watching with like disgust,
Yeah.
they're just like, you idiots, and this, that, and the other thing. And so you can't hear them, but they're just watching, and then they'll point you back out to sea, and because they got those lighted sticks, that they'll send you back out,
Well, I'm just wondering about the guests at the hotel. If they happen to wake up in the night and come walking down the balcony,
there'll be people standing on the beach watching this whole thing. Just lined watching these people get crushed on these rocks because it is fun to watch.
Have you ever been to the hotel, Murph? The hotel?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So that's been down there. It's a beautiful area, and I think part of the attraction is people come out there to see the SEAL training. They come out to see, I mean, there's neat things too. You'll see on other exercises, you see these awesome looking boats. People will be coming back after doing we were down at Virginia Beach one time, saw the same thing, saw some guys coming back in. And I think that's part of the attraction. But it's like, can you imagine waking up at 1 o'clock? Oh dear, it's about time for the poor kids to crash into the rocks. Let's
The
go watch
seals
them.
are going to be on the rocks tonight, and I'm not talking about the animals.
And it isn't just the rock evolution. So they'd have you bear crawl all the way to the condominiums past the Hotel Del Coronado. So you'd start at the SEAL compound, 2 miles of bear crawling in the soft sand.
Oh,
So they get to see all kinds of cool stuff.
cool.
Did you ever hear any folks shouting words of encouragement to you?
Never.
Never?
Not one. No, I mean, you're so miserable that you're really not paying any attention to anybody, but, just trying to survive.
Did you ever hear any words of sympathy?
Nope. No.
Dang.
I mean, people are scared. I mean, they're just like, oh my God. They're just like, how can these people still be alive? I mean, watching this whole,
and it's self-inflicted. They volunteered for this.
Watching this whole car wreck happen right in front of me, and there's nothing they can do. There's nothing they can say. They're just like, you just see them with their stunned look on their face, like watch you go by. Because our time runs and all that are all down past the Hotel Del Coronado. I mean, you'll be running down there, you'll hit the rocks, and then there's a place past the rocks. You turn around and you're coming right back through those rocks and heading back to the
Murph, he's getting the same look with this as he did when he was back in North Carolina carrying around an 8-foot log in the park. Goes, you want some help with that?
I just saw that guy like 2 days ago too. I mean, same guy.
Oh, yeah. So, where your log is?
No, I was just driving down the road and he was checking his cows, and I threw my hand up at him. So,
where's that stick, boy?
Where's that big stick? Hey, but that's the first night, right? So now,
first night.
Don't jump to the end yet, but just in terms of bookending this whole thing, during this whole week, how many hours of sleep do you guys get?
I would say we won a race. You have to win something to get some sleep, at least back then. And so we won a race. We go out, dump boat, and then come back in. And you all you hit the surf at the same time. You run to the beach. You got your boats. You throw that boat, and the waves are breaking like 6-foot waves right on you. And you got to jump in your boat and you paddle through the surf. And if you can make it through that surf, then you get out past the surf zone. You dump boat is what it's called. And so guys get in the water. They'll hang on to one side of the boat, and then the guys stand on the top and they'll flip it over. And then everybody gets back in the boat, and you paddle back into the beach. Well, we won an evolution of doing that. My boat crew did. And so we actually got to prop our boat up. The sun was coming up or whatever it was. We propped our boat up and we got 10 minutes of sleep. And that was
10 minutes.
Yep.
Whoa. I thought you were going to say like an hour, but dang.
No.
Murph sleeps 10 minutes at least down on every podcast we do. Holy cow.
That's like 10 minutes an hour on these podcasts. Just so if y'all hear this, you'll know what that is.
10. Oh man. But for the whole time, how much sleep do you think you got during that week?
10 minutes.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was not. I think maybe now they may be regulated a little bit more where you actually get to like, but I'll tell you what, you can sleep while you're rowing. I'll put it that way. So we'd have to paddle from the San Diego Bay all the way out through the opening and back into the SEAL compound. And you'd be rowing, paddling your boat. Not rowing. I won't say. People are going to be like, "What's he talking about? Rowing, paddling your boat." And I mean, it's a long way. And during that paddle, you'll see like, I don't know, fake ships, and you'll see like
start hallucinating.
You'll see like pink elephants and whatever it is. You're just kind of like, oh, and then you'll wake up all of a sudden. So. Somewhere in there, you just kind of stop paddling sometimes, and your guys will kick you and be like, "Hey," and you guys start paddling again, So I mean, you're so exhausted though. I mean, so you do catch a wink here and there, but that's the one time I remember that they said, "Hey, okay, you guys, you won. Set your boat up, go to sleep." And it was about 10 minutes, from what I remember.
Wow.
But see, that's why, you'll hear the guys that do this kind of work, especially military, is like you grab sleep when you can, because you never know when you're not going to get it.
Absolutely. You can sleep on a concrete floor. You're so tired. I mean, you'll put a boot under your head and go to sleep. I wish I could do that now. I mean, I'm like, Last night I woke up and I'm like, man,
You're getting soft. Jeez,
I
Kevin, you're
am.
getting
I might
soft.
start sleeping on the porch.
That's what your wife said.
Yeah.
So you piss her off enough, you'll be out there for much longer.
Absolutely.
Well, but Hell Week is now, when you say week, 5 days, 7 days, or is that just kind of a euphemism? It depends on how long they want to run you.
Yeah. Usually it'll start on a Monday and you'll end on a Saturday is usually I think that's how ours was. But
Do you
yeah,
know when the end's coming, or you're just looking
it's a
forward to
week.
whenever it is? Yeah.
You don't, but when, you get to Friday and man, you're just like, oh my gosh, it's just misery, constant misery, because they took you down to Camp Surf. It's this place down the beach, and you live basically around this. It's called the demo pit, and there's this big rope that goes through this demo pit, and they'll hook a truck up to it, and this water. There's this nasty water in this pit. It's black and it's nasty, and there's all kinds of stuff in it, as far as like organisms, and you don't want to get in this water, but they make you like crawl through this water. You'll get to one side of this contraption that they have set up with these poles on either side with a rope running through the poles, and then they hook a truck up to one end of that rope. So now you're having to crawl across this rope underneath this rope, with your feet on the rope and your hands on the rope, and they're pulling this thing back and forth with a pickup, just ramming it, wow, 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 back and forth. And so you're flying up in the air, and then eventually it shoots you off like an arrow up in the air, and you land back down in this water, which is only about 4 or 5 feet deep. So you hit the bottom, and people get hurt, and anyway. So that's where you're living for a whole 3 or 4 days of this whole thing. You're eating. They'll come and they'll throw sand in your food, and you get boxed lunches, and so
I was going to say, did they feed you while you're going through this?
Yeah, they do. Honestly, and every now and then you got to go to the chow hall and just eat like crazy men, and they do feed you. They got to.
Otherwise, yeah, you run, like you say, you run out of fuel. You can only go for so long.
How many times do you throw up?
Well, I never threw up.
Oh, you don't want to lose that food, Murph?
No.
Yeah, but I'm sure they didn't let you walk out of the mess hall back to the beach. I'm sure they had to run you back down there, didn't they?
No, you ran everywhere. Even when you're not in Hell Week, you run absolutely everywhere you go. There's no walking. You run everywhere you go. And so then you run back across the amphib base is the chow hall. You run back across to the Buds compound, and then you run back down to like I said, surf camp. But when we were at surf camp, they gave you boxed lunches, and so you're eating them, and you're miserable. And then at night when the sun goes down, they always had this saying, you would be ready to in the desert in California, when the sun goes down, especially, this is probably like February, March time.
It's cold, doesn't it?
Oh man. And they'd be like, oh, goodbye, Mr. Sun. Hello, Mr. Cold. And it'd go below the horizon. You watch this beauty. They'd have you all stand out and watch that sunset, and then they'd say that, and it'd go below the horizon. They're like, okay, hit the surf. So you go in the surf, lock your arms, and be laying their head out to sea, and then they get you out. And then after they've tortured you for hours, then you come out, and they've got a bonfire lit. And you're like, oh my gosh. And this is really probably to save your life. We didn't know this at the time, but they're like, okay, guys, get around the fire, warm up, so you don't die of hypothermia. So, you get all warm and nice and toasty. And what they would do this is right at shift change.
So you get fresh instructors to come in and take over?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'd be sitting around, they'd be like, okay, so we're going to have story time. So they'd have guys tell stories about their first girlfriend or whatever. And anyway, so, and you're like, man, they're kind of being nice. And then they go, oh no, who is that? And they'd look down the beach, and there's these headlights, like this train of headlights at about 80 miles an hour coming down the beach. And they're like, oh no, that's the next shift. What are they going to do when they catch you by this fire? And just, so everybody's mind is like snapping, and man, they come like power sliding in, sand flies on. They power slide it within feet of you. Sand flies all over everybody, and they jump out, and man, they're like, what the H is going on here? You SOBs or whatever around the fire, get in the surf. And you'd have people just quitting like that,
Done.
Just man, left and right,
Whew.
Yeah.
We're laughing now, right? It's like anything, you're laughing now, but it's like you look at it and you go, I mean, I know in your mind you said it's, it's death or I make it. There's no in between. But at any time during that, did it ever enter your mind to say how easy it would be to ring that bell and make this misery go away?
I don't think so. I mean, like I said, I went in it with I turned 19 while I was there. I was 18. I turned 19, and I went there, and I had no plan B. I'm from the hills of North Carolina. I got no education. I don't, I ain't been to college. I don't want to. And I mean, they would purposely stand you. You come out of the chow hall, they'd be like, "All right, everybody line up," and you look across the bay at all the ships across the bay, and they'd be like, "Look at your new home, boys. That's where you're going to be as soon as you quit." And so I'm just looking at them ships, and I'm like, I ain't gonna be on no ship. I mean, that ain't happening. And so you have to have that mindset. That's it. I mean, there's no like, hey, I'm thinking about quitting or whatever. No, you can't even think that.
And I mean, obviously, we're not laughing at you here. For it's amazing what you guys went through. The
Oh, I don't know. I'm laughing at him. I can't imagine in there taking a pee and somebody takes an M60 and starts
Oh my
firing rounds. Man,
gosh,
I would have peed and crapped at the same time.
yeah, I'd had to go change my pants before we went outside. Unbelievable.
Oh man. Well, but look, but we're going into a lot of detail on this for everybody who's listening because you have to appreciate everything that's gone on because we're going to talk about his wildlife experience than Delta. But this mindset is what allows you to survive. And I mean, Kevin, we haven't even started talking about the shit Kevin did, the
Right.
medals he got, what he did. I mean, that's coming. And so, but let's talk about now winding down Hell Week. So, how did the end of Hell Week come? And is there a ceremony? Is there anything special they do to mark it, or is it just like, hey, you survive, get some sleep, we start this thing again tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say it's a big ceremony, but what happens is it'll be daylight or it'll be the last day. They'll try to make it out like, okay, well, tomorrow we're going to do this, and they're trying to break your mind again about this is going to keep going. This is going to, today's not the last day, and everybody thought, man, today's the last day, and then they're going to come with, hey, we got to run today, and so they're going to lead you on a run. You've been through this whole week of all this stuff and you're miserable. You're chafed. You're swelled up from seawater being in your body from osmosis. Your feet are all swelled up. Your boots are not fitting. You have to untie your laces. And I mean, so you're miserable. And that's like, hey, we're going to do a time run or whatever it is, and you're like, oh my gosh. So everybody form up on the beach, get ready for this time run, So everybody's in formation, getting ready to do this time run. They're like, okay, left face. And you're looking out to sea. And then the commanding officer comes up on the berm of the beach right there, and he's standing on the berm. And they're like, "Okay, about face." Everybody does an about face and looks, and he's standing there, and he says, "Okay, you're secure from Hell Week." And I mean, that's pretty much it, And
Did
it's
you fall down on the
basically,
ground?
well, no, the instructors actually come up, shake your hand, tell you good job, and go like you said, go get chow, get some rest, and Monday it starts all over.
So, did you get chow or did you just go right to sleep?
No, actually, I mean, I was tired and everything, and it didn't hit me till later in the day. I was like, there was a pizza place down the road, and I put on, and this was a mistake. I put my cowboy boots on and walked to this pizza place down the road. I'm like,
Wait a minute. Define. We've been through this before. Define down the road. 12 miles, 10
no,
miles.
this is only about a mile, not quite a mile, probably three-quarters of a mile. So I go down to the pizza place, I grab my pizza, I come back, and now my feet are really swelling, and I've got these stupid cowboy boots on, and so I'm just like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to get back to the room, and you're going to the bathroom like every hour because you've absorbed all this water in your body from laying in the surf, from laying in water for a week straight, and so you've absorbed this water into your body. So your feet are swelled, your hands are, you look like, there's that movie with Will Smith where he has that allergic reaction. That's your hands kind of look like that. And just, and it didn't hit me until I got back with my pizzas. And, so I barely can get my boots off. I'm eating my pizza and I wake up like with a half-eaten piece of pizza, like 6 hours later, and I'm like, oh, it's the middle of the day. And then I eat another piece of pizza and I fall back asleep and I wake up and it's Sunday. And so it was just, but then Monday it all starts over.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, So when that Monday comes, you start with 82. How many are left, you think?
I would say 30.
Wow. Okay. So you've lost a third, a third, the first one, the third during Hell Week, and now.
Yep.
All right. So so you're now 6 weeks into this?
6 weeks. Yep. So Monday that started second phase for us. And what they do is it's the classroom portion of all the weapons that you're going to learn to take apart and to take the tests on this, that, and the other thing. So you have a week of learning all the weapons. So basically letting you recover from Hell Week. You get about a week, and you're learning to take these weapons apart and this, that, and the other thing. But you still have a timed run like on next Thursday or whatever it is, and so it doesn't quit, but they do slack off for a few days so that you can recover a little bit.
Now, the other thing too is even though you got weekends off during pre-training, there are no weekends off when you get to buds.
No, yeah, you're off. It just depends because you're gone. You leave the compound and you're gone for weeks on end to go do land warfare and during Hell Week, of course, you're working that weekend. But there is a few weekends that you do have the whole weekend off. And it's, but most of the time though, they have something planned that it's going to go into Saturday or you got to start Sunday or whatever it is. So, but yeah, in second phase, cause you leave for San Clemente Island, pretty quick, for land warfare. So that means you're working all the time.
Now, did some of the guys who made it through this far, did anybody go out like on a weekend and just do something foolish, get themselves in trouble and get kicked out?
I don't think so. Not in my class. That did happen though, because Tijuana was really close.
That's why I was asking. Yeah. You crossed the border
and we went down there. I mean, no, I didn't go during buds. I don't think I went during buds. I went after. I went back for some training later on, but I didn't have a car. None of us hardly had cars. There maybe were a couple older guys that had cars and they weren't about going to Tijuana. So I don't think I went during the training. I didn't really go anywhere. I mean, I was focused. I mean, it was just like, hey, this is do or die for me. So I ain't worried about going out and doing nothing.
Especially after you've survived Hell Weeks. Like, I don't want to do anything to screw this up now.
Yeah. Yeah. Now you get your brown T-shirt because you made it through Hell Week and you're one of the, cool guys because you made it through Hell Week, which you're really not, but you think that, you're like, man, I don't have to wear that white T-shirt anymore.
Yeah, you don't have to.
I'd have felt like a damn stud walking around there if I survived that.
The white T-shirts, trust me, Murph, the white T-shirts were brown even during the first 6 weeks. I mean, you get the sand and everything, but they start off brown this time instead of white. So
that's right.
During the weapons phase, what was your favorite weapon?
Well, really, I mean, it's basic. You got an M60, you got M16s, you got M14s. And so I like the M14. I mean, it was a 7.62 weapon and it was really accurate and it was a powerful weapon. And we had the M16s from Vietnam. I mean, that was the ones that they had slated for, because it really didn't matter. You're just learning to shoot basic and this, that, and the other thing. So we had old M16s but I enjoyed shooting the M14s and the M60 was fun when it worked. So
were the M16s 5.52 caliber?
Yeah, they're just 5.56.
5.56, sorry, the 7.62.
But from a sidearm standpoint, what was the? Because I know there's been a lot of transitions with sidearms. Do you remember what the official sidearm was?
Well, I'll tell you what we shot. The one I enjoyed shooting the most in SEAL training was the 357 Magnum. It was a wheel gun. It was just a stainless steel. I distinctly remember shooting it, and I thought, man, that's a pretty cool gun.
Was it a Colt or a Smith?
It was a Smith. Yep. Because
Model 686, probably.
Yep, it was because we would use those for shipboarding because they're stainless steel. They work. Doesn't matter what happens, they work. And so that's what we would use for shipboarding later on when I was a SEAL. But and then they had back then it was the Beretta was the sidearm, that they trained us on, in SEAL training.
The 92s, everybody has those. Those things are big back then.
Yeah, I got the Model 96 Centurion, but because it's the 40, but those were the 9s, right?
That was the 9 mils. Yep.
Yeah. So, but you kind of get the week off. So, what's the rest of SEAL training like now? Your buds class. So, you say it's just 6 months, and you're only a month and a half into this at this point, right?
Yep. So now it's just more. I mean, you're still being tortured whenever they can, but it's you're learning. You're actually learning land warfare, small unit tactics, land navigation. You're learning radios. Like I said, you're learning the weapons. You because you have tests on all this stuff. You got to
Mhm.
make comms. You got to take this weapon apart and put it back together in 2 minutes. You got, just it's more of a learning phase. You're learning hydrographic reconnaissance, where you're got a lead line and you're swimming out into the ocean and you're dipping this lead line, and you know that it's got knots in the line every foot, and you dip it down and you write on a little slate of what the depth is, and so then they'll collect all these up and put this chart together that basically lays out the way the beach is laid out and the depths and everything, and it's for the Marines to come in. That's what this is. It goes back to World War II. You look for obstacles, you dive down, you look for obstacles. You're doing your depth findings and all that. So that's all going on during this phase of the training.
So, I got a test question for you, Kevin. Who is the most dangerous man in the Army? Second lieutenant with a map and compass.
Ooh, yeah.
You're talking about land nav. Land nav has ruined more opportunities than I think almost anything else.
Yeah, and a second lieutenant that won't listen is the worst. So yeah, anyway, anybody don't know how to navigate and won't listen to their point man is like, oh man,
Hey,
It'll be a
you're not
long
long for
day.
this world, pal. Yeah.
exactly.
So, so you're doing all of this stuff now. Where do you guys go to do a lot of this work? I think you were talking. You said it earlier, but when you were doing like your land warfare and your small unit tactics, where do they take you?
They take you out to San Clemente Island. It's off the coast of California. I guess we rode out there in a boat. They had old Vietnam Sea Foxes and PLs from Vietnam that we would. That's what they take us out to do our ocean swims. They take you out miles out into the ocean, kick you out of the boat, and then you got to swim back to the beach. So I mean, this is a weekly occurrence, and
What's a
so
PL?
it's a patrol boat. It's the
Okay.
one in like you see it in Apocalypse Now. Those type of boats that went up the rivers, the brown water Navy, basically. And so anyway, that's what's going on during this time frame. And like I said, the obstacle course, the time runs, the swims, and the torture, all that is still going on. But you're actually in between all that, you're learning to do all this stuff, and then you got to study. You got room inspections. Yeah, yeah, it's a full plate.
Man, well, look, we're just sitting here. Well, a lot of it, we're shaking our head, but it's in admiration. Going, man,
Absolutely.
just to get this far. It's like the old saying, "I didn't come this far just to come this far." It's like we're graduating now, right? So, where did you? But at some point, you're going to start losing more people. But
All during this time, you're losing people. So people will fail time run, or they'll fail a obstacle course, and you're gone.
how many of them? How many of it was failure to hit a standard versus ringing the bell?
At this point, it's more a failure of a standard, because I mean, you still had people quit and stuff because certain evolutions were so miserable that people would just be like, I'm done, or whatever. But it was at this point, it's pretty rare because of you made it through Hell Week. You're a pretty
You
tough
can do it.
guy, and so at this point, I mean, like in the next phase, we lost a lot of people to dive physics. We actually had to do dive physics, which was, I mean, really, I mean, P1 plus V1 equals B2 plus V2. I
So
mean,
you're calculating residual nitrogen levels.
yes, I mean that's and it wasn't easy. I mean, it was just, and you had to know it. I mean, I had to study that stuff all night long before a test, and I had it, by the end of it. But some guys didn't get it, and we lost guys for that. And that's in third phase. So weapons tests, the taking the tests on the rate of fire and this, that, and the other thing. You lose guys in that. You lose guys breaking down an M60 and putting it back together. They miss the time. They give them another try and they miss it. They're out. So I mean,
What would happen if you were like at that where you're at right now, that phase right now? Let's say you got hurt, you broke an ankle or a foot. Do you have to go back and start all over again? That includes Hell Week, or where do they start you off at?
no. So I had a good friend, and he actually was running up the beach. We was on a time run, and this was after Hell Week, I believe. And but he was such a good guy. He was basically an Olympic caliber swimmer from Iowa, and but he was he was an athlete all around, and he was a super good guy. And he's still around, but he was running down the beach, and he'd always beat me in these time runs. I was always like second or third, and this guy would beat me. And I noticed I'm passing this guy. It's a 4-mile time run, and I'm just like, whoa. I said, this is not right. I wonder what's up. And his first name's Al. And I'm just like, I said, Al, you all right? And he goes, no, man, my hip's killing me, And so he had a stress fracture in his hip. And right after I passed him, his hip broke in two, and he just collapsed.
Oh, dang.
Yeah, onto the beach, And so we're just like, whoa, because everybody loved this guy. He's a great guy, and you hate to lose him out of your class. Just super good guy, And he, they rolled him back, and it took him a couple years, I think.
Yeah.
And he's such a good guy. They kept him around till he healed up. He ended up getting through buds. And then, just crazy stuff happens. One of his first like static line parachute jumps in the teams, he landed on a rooftop of a building. I think this is how it happened. And then the wind sucked him off that rooftop, and he's been in a wheelchair ever since.
God.
Yeah. But yeah, it was a sad situation. In buds, and then after too, but he's got a foundation. He's a great guy. And
when he went down on the run, do you guys stop as a team and go back and help, or do you just keep rolling?
No. It's, as soon as I saw an instructor, because it's every man for himself. But now when I was passing the guy, I did say, hey man, are you all right? Because this ain't normal. Why am I passing you? You had a rough night last night or what? And so, but yeah, you don't stop. As soon as I got back though, I said, hey, something's wrong with Al, so they went back and got him, and but they took care of him, because if you're a good guy at this point, they know that
he's earned it. He's earned
not only that, there's so much time, effort, blood and sweat invested in you. It's like, we're not going to let you go.
Well, how about you're running till your hip breaks in half? There's that.
So, unbelievable.
There's no quitting that guy.
Obviously, we've clearly determined there is no psychological test to be a SEAL. So
I'm thinking if I get a blister on my toe, I'm not getting on that treadmill.
Yeah,
it hurts.
Oh man. Well, we have the luxury of doing that now. So, so you're going through all of that. I don't want to shortcut a lot of this because there's so much, but I think we've gone through the stuff that makes it legendary, the myths, the Hell Week, the ringing the bell. You go through all of that. One quick question though, before we kind of start getting into the next part, is by the time you got through with all your firearms training, how many thousands of rounds do you think you probably shot?
Just in SEAL training?
Yeah.
No, you don't, you qualify. You shoot and you qualify and this, that, and the other thing, but that's not the focus. It's more, hey, yeah, this is a familiarization. We're going to teach you how to shoot. You're going to zero your weapons. You're going to qualify. And that's about it for the firearms, because the focus is teaching you how to be a small unit, how to operate as a platoon, swimming over the beach and then going in, hitting a target and coming back out, rescuing a pilot. And so that's kind of what our focus was when we was doing San Clemente Island. It really wasn't just firearms, because that's just a small portion. And the weapons we had, they're Vietnam era, your iron sights. Back then it was iron sights, but that wasn't their focus,
So, but did a lot of the firearms training then come afterwards? Because at some point, you've got to.
Oh yeah, once you get to a SEAL team, then that's when you go to shooting schools and all this. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll get into that. So, but let's kind of talk about then, as you get past that, the land warfare, all the nav courses and everything. What's it like as you start getting into your final phase? What kind of things are you working on? How many people are we talking about left?
So by this time, we've probably got 20 people left. And it's this dive phase, because we lost a lot of people in second phase, because it's just one of those, just to eat chow, you had to do 20 pull-ups, or else you ate your food in the surf zone. You ate an MRE in the surf zone. You had to sit in the surf zone like chest deep and eat your food. So if you couldn't do 20 pull-ups. And so, that was the I mean, that's how Spartan it is. I mean, out on that island, because there's nothing, and you're carrying stuff up hills. It's called Frog Hill, and they'll make you carry these like rocks. They call them dinosaur eggs, and they're probably about 80 pounds each. And you got to carry this rock up this mountain to the top of this hill, and then carry it back down, and then you do 20 pull-ups or before chow, or you've got these pallets, these metal pallets that weigh 50 or 60 pounds, and you got to carry that above your head up this mountain and then back down. Or you got the chaplain. They've got this 200-pound guy. They call him the chaplain because you get about halfway up this mountain with this thing, and it just crushes you and you fall. And they say, oh, look, he's having prayer with the chaplain. And so, I mean, all this, we lose all these people in that second phase. And plus, you're swimming around the island. It's full of great whites. They're making sure there's great whites everywhere. And so you lose a lot of people out there. And so, like I said, so we get down to about 20. We get back to Coronado, and we start third phase, which was dive phase for us back then. And so, and then there, once again, you got that dive physics. And so you have that all through that phase, and the test is at the end. You could have made it all through everything, and people would fail that test and be kicked out. So, and and then dive, you're breathing on tanks, you're breathing on draggers. And so,
what's a dragger?
It's a chest mounted, actually it's made for, like going into a mine, and it's all, O2. It's just all O2. There's no pure O2. It's not like a scuba tank, which is air. And so, 79%, and then some oxygen, but this is pure O2. And so they would go into mines with it, back in the old days and work because you didn't have any air down there. So they've modified it to dive with it. And it's on your chest, and it's got this stuff called Sodazorb. And what it does is it'll scrub your breath and take out the carbon dioxide, and it goes back in, and you'll rebreathe this over and over until you get all the O2 out of it. And then you get another breath of O2 so that you can stay underwater for 3 or 4 hours on this rig.
Well, and it's not a very big rig either. It's not like having 2 big tanks on your back or anything else.
It's mounted on your chest, and I mean, it's cumbersome, but so that's just like, okay, with that deal, like you'd be having to do buddy breathing in a pool, so you're having to buddy breathe, and so it's got these it's 2 tubes that come around in a mouthpiece. So you got to turn the mouthpiece off, hand it up to your buddy, and he's swimming on your back. He's got to breathe, and then he's got to turn it off, hand it back down to you. So you'd lose people like in that evolution because it's super stressful. Because, I mean, you've got, it doesn't sound like it, but it's, you're running out of air and you're swimming and you need that thing, and you're like, hey, and then maybe he needs another breath, and then he don't get it to you in time, and he turns it and water gets in it and you suck in water. And so now it's like, oh no, and you got a mouthful of water. And if you can't think enough to go spit it out and then open that thing back up, blow it out, and then get air, then you got to think about all that with not having any air. So as he hands it down to you, you're out of air, you get a big mouthful of water. You've got to have enough sense to turn that thing off, blow that out, turn it back on, blow it out, and then take a breath. So it's just,
man,
you said that doesn't sound like a lot. That sounds like a hell of a lot.
Yeah, hell of a lot. But from an operational standpoint too, that thing did not produce bubbles like you normally see with dive tanks, right? So this would be truly stealth.
Yeah, unless you're having to do what I'm just talking about, and you have to blow it out, and all that. But that's just an extremis situation. You're having to buddy breathe with your buddy,
But if you were operating, no buddy breathing, but just operating, from a surface standpoint, you wouldn't see anything.
You wouldn't see anything. No.
Yeah, and if you're buddy breathing on an operation, you're in
it's already gone to shit. Something's happened.
It's a bad deal. Absolutely. So, and then you have things like pool comp where it's, you have a tank on and you'll be down on the bottom of the swimming pool, and an instructor comes down and he like wraps that cord around your neck and then takes your mask off, ties your mouthpiece hose into a knot, and now you're trying to undo all this. He turns your air off in your tanks, so now you've got to figure out, okay, you got to try to turn your air back on. You got to try to figure out if you can get a hold of your mouthpiece, and then get some air. Well, you figure out you can't do it. You got to take all your stuff off in a certain sequence. After you've been slung around the bottom of this swimming pool for 30 seconds. Now, once you figured out, you tried to fix it on your back, you get it off and you lay it down and you try to undo the knot and try to get the air back on, try to get some air out of the tank. If you can't, you undo your weight belt, you lay your weight belt across this thing, and then you exhale and you go to the surface. And then, if you did everything right, you pass. If you didn't, you get to do it again.
If you go up and get a breath, is that failure?
No. Well, that's the whole point is, hey, I've worked through everything I can work through. I tried to get this knot, this whammy knot, they call it. Instructors can tie a whammy knot in there where it goes around the manifold of the tanks. They get this thing where you can't undo it, and then, but if they didn't do the whammy knot and you just took your tanks off, laid your thing across and went up, they'd fail you. So you at least got to try to, hey, undo this thing and try to get a breath of air, and then turn your air back on and okay, now you're good to go. And then basically you put your thing back on, then you go up. But if you, it's just there's a lot to it.
I didn't do a lot of diving, but I remember when you talked about that, the dive tables, this is where all this training comes in, right? Because depending on how far down you are, when you do this, if you've got nitrogen in your system, that's where the people used to call it getting the bends. You'd have people come up and get the bends, and they'd have to put them in a decompression chamber to get that nitrogen out of your system, because that'll kill you.
Absolutely. I mean, we only do one. It's called a bounce dive, just so you get a familiarization in buds. They'll take you out and you'll dive down to 120 feet with a set of tanks on, and you'll come back to the surface, and that's it. So if you stayed down there for any length of time, then you've got to spend a certain amount of time at each
atmosphere,
depth
right?
of water atmosphere as you come up. And with the O2, you can pretty much, as long as you don't go below 60 feet, none of that matters because you're breathing pure O2.
There's no nitrogen in there. Yeah. So is it like every 30 feet's like the equivalent of an atmosphere?
It's an atmosphere. Yep. So with the O2 breathing that, if you go below 60 feet though, it becomes poisonous below 60 feet.
Wow.
So much to remember. Wow.
Well, that's why I sit by the pool and order drinks. I don't take the risk of doing that.
Oh
man.
My gosh.
Well,
I know we're well into this podcast, but this is so fascinating. We haven't gotten to the law enforcement part yet.
We haven't even got to the Delta part of this. This is going to be a 9-hour podcast, I'm afraid.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Hey, yeah, guess what? And you don't get to go to the bathroom, pal. You go when we say you go. Otherwise, I'm going to have somebody throw sand at you.
Hey, you can see him. He's got freaking muscles on top of his mouth. Don't piss this guy off, man.
Great thing about being on video, unless you're a hell of a shot from North Carolina to Virginia, I'm kind of safe for a while. When I don't see any bubbles in my bathtub, then I'm going to know somebody's waiting there for me. So, yeah. Speaking of Murph, he has bubbles in his bathtub, but that's a different thing. Let's get back to you, Kevin. So, as this thing is coming to an end, I mean, you're coming up on the end of this 6 months. What's it like in the last, let's say, month? What kind of things are you doing, and how's the atmosphere?
Okay, so it's more. I don't want to say it's more professional. It really is. I mean, it's more, okay, these guys are to the last of this thing. They want to see you make it at this point. I mean, now they're not going to cut you any slack. You fail something, you don't pass the dive physics, you do something stupid, you're gone. I mean, but at this point, they know you have what it takes at least to not quit. Okay. And so if you've got the brains to get through the dive physics and all that, okay, it's more of a, camaraderie, because you're doing a 14-mile beach run with the instructors. I mean, now it's miserable because back then we wore UDT shorts, and I don't know if you know what those are, but they're these super short little tan shorts they wore in World War II, and they'll super chafe you. And so it was all in jungle boots back in those days. So, you're running a 6-minute pace, 14 miles on the beach in jungle boots. I mean, it's, and there's 2 or 3 of us left, the instructor, and dudes are strung out all along the beach, trying to survive and get through this in the time allotted. You got like a 7-mile ocean swim that there's a allotted time you have to make it. And then you got all this whole, pool comp and all the diving going on, and learning how to, get your rig together, because it's all on you, And so all that's going on that last month that you're there. I mean, like I said, it's changed now. And now I think second phase is dive phase, but all this is going on in that last month.
Hey, talk real quickly too as we wind up this portion of it. But we've talked a lot about the instructors. Now, I think some people will think, "Oh, the instructors got it easy. They just show up, they sit there, they have fun." But if you're an instructor at Buds, are you able to compete with everybody else who's going through that phase? In other words, in terms of being in shape, being able to do the pull-ups, the runs, and everything?
The instructors lead everything. I mean, it's no cakewalk for them. I mean, they're doing all the pull-ups you're doing. They're doing all the runs you're doing. I mean, it's there's an instructor leading leading the PT, leading every step of the way. So it's no like do as I say, not no, they're doing it. And so you're like, well, if that guy can do it, it's very motivating for the guys to see a guy. I mean, you're talking, and now that I look at it, they were young guys, they're under 30 or, probably 28 years old. They're running those 6-minute miles and, now they're in tennis shoes and some of them would run in boots, but some of them would run in tennis shoes if they were injured or something. But all in all, I mean, I have the utmost respect for all those Buds instructors. I mean, some of them were harder than other ones, and I appreciate them all because they made me who I am.
Yeah. And it builds immense respect when a guy gets out there and does it with you.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
they don't. We used to call them REMs, rear echelon, motherfuckers. They would sit back, they would just, as opposed to somebody who's at the tip of the spear with you, doing the work.
Yep, they were right there with us. I mean, even sometimes they'd even do the swims with us. So I mean, it was, and I've never been in an environment like that again, to be honest with you. As far as, I mean, some of the stuff when I went to Dev Group, the instructors would do with us, but definitely in Buds, it was they were right there with us.
So let's talk about the last. Like your last week, you're getting down to. So how do they wind up your Buds training? What's that like? What's the ceremony like? What do they do to you? Because you hear all the stories, you see them, pounding pounding it onto your chest.
Yeah, that's not happening at Buds. Your last week really is you're finishing up your dive physics test. You're doing whatever it is, your last time run, your last O course, your this, that, and the other thing. You're filling out where you want to go, what SEAL team you want to go to, a wish list, and that's pretty much it. I mean, the graduation. If you make it, you pass your test. They issue you a set of camis. And you get ready for graduation. You'll do a rehearsal for your graduation, where you're going to sit and all this stuff. And by this time, there's
how many people are left? Yeah,
there's 8 of us originals that started, and then they've rolled in guys that were hurt from other classes into our class, and so there's 16 total. But there's 8 of us that started in class 160.
8 out of 82.
So,
wow.
But yeah, so then, so basically, we filled out where we wanted to maybe go and this, that, and the other thing. I think I put like SEAL Team 4, SEAL Team 2. Well, there was a new team started and it was SEAL Team 8, and they had just started the team. They sent our whole class to SEAL Team 8, all of us.
And you're stationed where then?
Little Creek, Virginia.
Wow, out in my kind of my neck of the woods. Hey, but real quickly too, talk about the difference in the SEAL teams. Do they have different missions? Are they aligned differently? Does everybody expect? Because everybody hears about SEAL Team 6, but is everything structured the same, or are there different things based upon the team you go to?
So the different teams have different areas of operation. AO is what you call it, and SEAL Team 8 was Africa. And so you've got different, like SEAL Team 2's Europe, SEAL Team 4's like South America, Central South America, and then the West Coast teams are more, the whole Asia Pacific theater. So, but as far as, and of course, they're going to be more jungle, than you're talking about, SEAL Team 8, which, not going to be jungle, it's more desert, so, but as far as the training goes, it's all pretty much the same, I mean, it's, you're learning how to jump out of planes and to rig boats and go to be able to rebuild outboard motors, get them to run after they've, come out of a helicopter and flipped upside down in the water. And I mean, you're just doing a workup to do your deployment once you get to a SEAL team.
So your wish list really didn't mean a whole lot, did
No, it didn't mean anything because they just
Does that sound familiar, Murph? How many people we talked to? Yeah, I wanted to go here, here, here. Where did they
Oh,
send you?
yeah.
Buffalo.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
Yep. It
Yep.
was just like, yep, your whole class is going to Team 8. And they were in trailers at Little Creek at the time, these double wide trailers.
Yeah.
Yep. So
Hey, there's nothing wrong with double wide mobily homes.
no. I mean, it was at least it was in trailers and we weren't in tents. So
Yeah.
we were pretty happy with that.
You weren't sleeping in the sand on the beach, were you?
Oh, we weren't nobody kicking sand in our face, and
You did look like a sugar cookie walking around town.
and you mentioned the whole getting your trident. Well, that's not for another 6 months because you got to go through this. Back then, it was called STT, SEAL Tactical Training, and so you get put into a class with our whole Buds class, and then other people from other teams that had just got to their teams. We all got put in this STT class. And basically you have to make it through this. And this is all like more advanced training, more shooting, more land warfare, more land nav, more diving, all this stuff. And then at the end of that 6 months, you go through a board. And if you get through that board of senior people asking you questions, then you're awarded your trident. So, but nowadays it's different. They go through this thing out in Coronado. Basically, when they leave Coronado now, they have their trident. They've been through free fall. They've had it's so much better now. When you get a guy from Coronado now, he is a trained SEAL. I mean, he's ready to go into a platoon. So, but back then it was different.
Well, you talked about free fall. Let's talk about that too. That's because that's got to be a fun part. I've seen guys that do, they'll do halo jumps, the high altitude, low opening, but you'll see guys, you got at some point you get up so high, you got to have special equipment to do these falls. So what, if you can say without disclosing anything you're not allowed to disclose, but what's the highest altitude you've ever jumped from?
35,000 feet.
Holy cow.
I'm sitting in first class in United Jet at 35,000 feet. I
was sitting in there last night, as a matter of fact. I'm thinking, I can't imagine jumping out of there.
Yeah, it was pretty neat. It was actually at the time a world record because it was a full combat equipment jump. And when they opened the doors to the C-141, it was just, you're jumping into the contrail. It's just this massive contrail and the sun's coming up, and we actually had a guy that had a crack in his mask and he actually passed out on the ramp. And he was in front of me. And so we all just leapt over him because we weren't going to not make this jump.
We were scared. Sucks to be you, pal, but we're setting a record. See you later.
We were scared they were going to put an arm out and say, whoa, 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 So, man, as soon as he went down, it was like leap over this guy and then jump out of this airplane. And it's a free fall. You free fall for 3 minutes.
Wow.
And just to put it in perspective, let's see if I remember some of my physics, because you do reach terminal velocity, but you reach about 120 miles an hour?
Yeah, you do. And I mean, honestly, some of the guys fall faster, the big guys, but it's right at 120.
Is the jump master getting that guy out of the way for y'all, or
no?
Or he's just getting out of y'all's way.
The techs on the airplane, the O2 techs are the ones, and you got medics and you got everybody else on that plane. So when it's a whole squadron of us doing this jump, and yeah, we just, we knew somebody was going to take care of him, so it wasn't like I was going to stop and render aid. He just was out of O2, and all he had to do was get his O2 back flowing, and then he'd be good to go. So that's all they did is they smashed that thing to his face, got it going, but he didn't get to jump. So,
oh man.
Yeah.
Now, hey, tell us though about the riggings though too, because what I love, you were talking about World War II compared to this versus the canopies versus the airfoils. How neat is that?
Yeah, our chutes are, they're pretty big because you got a lot of weight, to have to, drive somewhere and actually where to hold you up, like 300 square feet, or something like that. But there's chutes down to 160 square. Even smaller than that. These guys that and compared to a round, the maneuverability is just so much better. You can drive that thing and land in a 10-foot square, just the whole troop, so whereas if you jump static line with round chutes, God knows where you're going to land. So,
1,280 feet, static line jump,
yep.
with the old C-130 rolling down the strip, airborne daddy going to take a little trip. There we
That's
go.
it. That's it. And you just hop out and then pray that you don't hit a tree.
Stand up, hook up, shuffle to the door, jump right out, count to 4. Hey, all of these things come back. Anyway, I digress. First drinking, we have a drinking game too. Anytime I say now back to our regularly scheduled podcast, or I digress, everybody gets to take a drink. So there's your first drink. So you go through all of this. So yeah, let's talk about then you go through, because obviously you pass STT. So what's now that graduation ceremony like when you finally realize that, hey, I'm about to get my trident?
Well, it's actually pretty brutal. Well, it was back then. I mean, you get I mean, they don't do this anymore. So, but I mean, you get your trident and they pound it in your chest, and then you get taped to a chair or something, and they tie a rope to it and they throw you into the bay. So you're sitting on the bay at the bottom of the bay for a while, and then they'll pull you up, and I mean, so it's
Damn,
It was
that
all
week
part of
wasn't bad enough.
yeah,
Hey,
yeah,
the one thing we didn't talk about, but this has obviously conditioned you for it at SEER,
yeah.
the SEER training. So, hey, I wanted to ask you about that before we move on to that, because that's survival, evasion, resistance, escape. A lot of people don't realize. I mean, I think everybody's misconstrued this whole thing about what waterboarding actually is and what it isn't. But when you guys went through your SEER training, how tough were they on you with the SEER training?
Well, it's just one of those. I don't know. I guess if it just depends. You can make it harder on yourself if you want to, and if you do what they tell you to do as far as your resistance, because all they're wanting you to do is resist. It isn't about escaping and all this other stuff in a wartime SEER situation. If they're wanting you to rake the yard, you might be raking the yard, but you're not going to be doing your best job at it. You see what I'm saying? So that is, hey, that's a small victory. I'm so tired that I'm gonna rake like 3 feet in 30 minutes. I just can't. I'm so hungry. I can't, do what I'm supposed to be doing, And so it's small victories is really is what it is. The whole waterboarding thing is one of those things. It's not in a basic SEER class. It's in a higher level one, and so I doubt they do that in a basic course. I've been through it in a higher level course, but not in a basic SEER course.
Yeah, what was that like?
It's pretty rough. It's yeah. I mean, you're basically drowning, and you just got to go to that other place.
Got to go to your happy place.
Go to your happy place and hope you don't get it in your lungs. So, hope it's sterile water.
And not that stuff that came out of the pit. What did you call it?
The demo pit. Yeah.
The demo pit. Oh my gosh. That's how you know you're going to survive, because you get inoculated. You can get inoculated against everything, but that demo pit's going to make you bulletproof. If you can survive that, nothing's going to kill you.
Absolutely.
All right. So you get through all of this now. Let's talk about some deployments that you had. So when's the first time you actually get to go do something?
So we did a pre-deployment workup in my platoon. I was in Bravo platoon at SEAL Team 8. And we we went and did a climbing trip in the Dolomite Mountains of Italy. And it was a month long. It was really a pretty fun school. And during that time, Iraq invaded Kuwait. So Desert Shield happened. And then our deployment was right after that. So we deployed and went overseas. And then we ended up going with the Marines up into Turkey, northern Turkey, and then right in the edge of, and then we started doing missions into into Iraq, doing reconnaissance.
So was this training that they took you on, was that because I remember the lead up to it. I mean, there was a lot of intelligence or belief that Saddam Hussein was going to do that. But was your training based on the fact that that was going to happen, or did you just happen to be training and doing that work when this happened?
Well, it was just a normal platoon workup. We were doing our normal stuff, and then somehow our platoon leader, he had arranged for us to go do this climbing trip. I mean, because it's part of our medal. Basically to be able to do certain things. And so he had that set up for us, and it wasn't a specific for that, but that's why we were there doing that. So,
all right, so. Saddam Hussein invades. What do you guys do?
Yeah, so we actually, we came back home, finished up our workup, and then ended up deploying on a MARG deployment, which is a Mediterranean cruise. Basically, you're with the fleet heading over into the Mediterranean Sea. We were on the USS Austin. I think it's an LPD is the name of the ship. It's decommissioned now. I don't even think it's in service anymore. But so you're on there with all the Marines and everything that goes along with a Mediterranean deployment, so that they can launch from carriers and whatever in that area. So there's always a group over there, and so that's what we were there to do. But with all that going on, with basically Desert Storm starting, about the time we got there, we latched on with the Marines and flew in CH-53s all the way up into Turkey, got in Tent City up there with all the Marines, and then basically our platoon commander went and looking for work for us to do. And they tasked us with doing reconnaissance into Iraq.
Now, what rank is your platoon leader?
He's a lieutenant.
Okay.
But lieutenant in Navy terms is a equivalent of a captain, like in the Army and the Marines.
Yep,
in
that's
03.
exactly. That's it.
So what rank were you at the time?
I was an E4.
So what's the Navy stuff? I can't ever figure this stuff out. When we talk to guy and saying it's the bosun's mate's that, it's this, it's that. It used to be easy when it was private first class, corporal, sergeant. But what do they refer to you as an E4? What's the official naval title?
E4.
Were you like a bosun's this or a
I was a photographer's mate's third class is what you are. I was a PH 4, I guess. So basically a PH 3, because I'd have been a 2, I'd have been an E5, a PH 1 would have been an E6. So I was a PH 3. That's what I was. Photographer's mate third class.
Did anybody ever ask you where your camera was?
Nope. I never had to deal with cameras or nothing. Once I left photographer mate school, I didn't really have to do any of that.
Well, not those kind of cameras anymore. There may have been others. So you said, but your first task was reconnaissance into Iraq. So to the extent, and people know, we've talked to people that came out of the agency that have done classified work. Everything's always governed by non-disclosure. So you are still bound by certain non-disclosures about things you can and can't talk about. So when we ask him a question like this and he gives us the answer, you're not going to hear us really drill down, because he's going to tell us what he can to the extent of his non-disclosure. Is that a fair statement, Kevin?
Yes, sir.
Don't call me sir. I work for a living. Now
okay.
hit 20. Give me 20.
He didn't. He was a trooper. He didn't work.
Oh, please. I did too.
Changed tires and went and got people gasoline,
Yeah, and solved crime, did stuff. Well, I covered, speaking of covering, I was the only guy out there sometimes. Anyway, but back to our regularly scheduled podcast, that's drinking game number 2. So tell us about your first, your reconnaissance mission. What kind of things, when they wanted you to recon, are you looking for weapons, for people, for movements of troops? What kind of tasks go along with the recon mission?
They would have, and it was mostly Republican Guard bases that they would have, because they would have pulled them out of Baghdad, put them up there around the country in northern Iraq, just to keep them from getting bombed or whatever during the initial invasion. So our job was to go in and watch what they were doing, and report back. Because there was no ISR. There was none of that back then. It was all like boots on the ground.
ISR?
Yeah, the surveillance.
Intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance.
Yeah, the drones, the manned aircraft, and all that. Yep. So they didn't have any of that back then.
You just had good old-fashioned binoculars and SEALs on the ground, right?
Spotting scopes, binoculars. And so, yeah, we were basically, that's what we did. We just, sat and watched them, and usually we'd stay out a week or two at a time, and then another squad would replace us from our same platoon. So
how many guys will go out with you?
Usually it'd be 8.
What was the role? So you have a team like that. How do you break down your roles in a team of 8?
So it's really your first squad and second squad, because there were 16 of us in a platoon, and then so you got your point man. Basically, and you got your heavy weapons, your M60 gunner, you got the first squad's commander, You've got your lead NCO basically in that first squad. And, you got basically your rear security guy, your commo guy. So it's basically just a small, I guess, a small platoon basically put together so that each one could run independently. And then your second squad had the same thing, except their commander was the Lieutenant JG, basically, who was running that squad.
Which is the equivalent of like an O2, first lieutenant.
First lieutenant, yep.
Yeah.
But they would usually have the team chief in the second squad so that he can make sure that guy didn't shoot himself or something. So
they put the medic in that
my
section.
mission, sir, here is to make sure you don't shoot yourself or hurt anybody else. That's it.
I say that, but we had a really good Lieutenant JG, and he was a great guy. So, but yeah, they do put the chief, since he's a more experienced guy, in with that second squad, and so we.
And they've been through BUDS training and all that as well, right?
Everybody in the platoon has been through SEAL training, and yep. So.
Hey, now there was one thing I'm doing research for something else one time, but is it true though that at least the PT qualifications between officers and enlisted, it was higher for officers initially? They had to do more, more runs or more reps, or was the PT test the same?
It's exactly the same.
Okay, I got bad information. I'm gonna have to hunt that person down.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember them having anything different than what we did.
So now, in any of these times, let's kind of bookend this by saying, how long were you deployed in Iraq? We'll get into some of the other stuff, but your total time out there before you came back to the States, how long were you out there? Was it one? Were you deployed once, twice?
So really, I mean, Desert Storm was pretty short. So the whole MARG deployment was about 8 months. Just because of Desert Storm, it kind of extended a little bit. They're normally 6 months, but ours was 8 months.
And during that time, you were doing the recon missions. Did you ever have enemy contact?
Yeah, well, I kind of, I guess it was a super stupid deal. I walked point for the platoon. That means I walked up front. I navigated. I looked for booby traps. I did all this other, sneaky stuff, So my platoon commander's like, hey, we're on one of those reconnaissance missions, and there was we were watching a camp, and there was a white, like almost like a wall tent, but it wasn't a wall tent. It was their version of a wall tent, and they were carrying and putting stuff in this tent all day, just all this. And he goes, I'd love to know what's in that tent. He goes, do you think you could get over there and see what's in it? And I was just like, I mean, it's a couple clicks away. It's like 4 clicks, to this tent, and pretty rough terrain in between, us.
It's just down the road, Kevin. It's just right down the road.
12 miles. Yeah. No, but I mean, it's just like out west where we were at in northern Iraq. I mean, Montana, you can look at something and go, oh, that's just right there. Well, then a day later, you get
you're still humping it.
Still humping it, So I'm like, yeah, I think so, And he goes, well, who do you think could, you will go with you? You won't compromise you. And I was just kind of like, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of sketchy, because I get down to socks and, I had my pistol because you're not going to do much with a rifle anyway out by yourself. And so I took a pistol, a couple of grenades, a Willie Pete grenade, so I could mark my position to put fire on it if I did get compromised, and took off, with a 112 radio, which is an emergency radio. We didn't even have comms, like inter squad comms. So if I got in a bind, I'd have to come over this thing that everybody and their brother, talking like to jets and everything else is going to hear me. So, so anyway, so I take off, and it's like, right at dusk in the evening. So I take off. I got a couple canteens of water, and I make my way over there, and about halfway there's like a campfire and guys sitting around a campfire, Iraqi soldiers, so I got to like skirt around, and then, luckily it was dark and I could see their fires because they all had little campfires and stuff. And so, because we didn't have any night vision, it wasn't like we were
really
no night vision. And
Wow.
so I'm creeping through all these camps of these people, and I get to this tent. I check it out. It's full of like RPGs, AK-47s, and big bags of rice. And so I'm making my way back. I'm trying to remember where all these little camps were, and then people will be out taking a leak, and you got to like let them get back to camp, and then you slip on around. But then it got daylight, and I wasn't back yet. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm still a click from getting back. And so I just find a crevice, and I pull a bunch of dirt and rocks and stuff in on me, and I'm just waiting, because now it's daylight and I got to wait all day, to get back, because I got to wait till nighttime. So of course I'm out of water, and and the sun's bearing down, so I just basically cover myself, so I don't get like totally roasted by the sun, and just kind of try to go to sleep and doze. And I'm laying there all day, and I wake up and there's a snake, like I'm assuming an asp, because it's got like a super like arrowhead shaped head, and it's like right on me there. So I grab a small stick, and I'm just like flicking this thing, off of me, but it's like super aggressive. It's like, man, it's coming, So I just stab it and stab it into the ground, and hold it there and kill it, because I mean, what else you going to do, And so I can't move much because these guys are around,
So that's your first confirmed kill in combat.
That's my first confirmed kill. Yep. So
let me tell you
yeah.
what, I would have died of a heart attack right there.
So anyway, I end up, it gets dark, and I'm like,
well, but wait a minute. First confirmed kill, all of this weapons training, and what does he take the snake out with? A stick.
I do bow hunt. I love to bow hunt. So, that's
well,
my
at least
first
it wasn't an
kill.
8-foot log this time, right? It's just a stick.
That's true. So I end up, man, I'm in bad shape, because I didn't take any food, and and I'm out of water, been out of water for a whole day. And so I basically end up crawling back into camp, and thank God it was like the next day we were exfilling to get out of there. And I had to go in the hospital and get like, I don't know, 4 bags of IVs and everything else, because I was in bad shape, but I definitely learned my lesson about, I learned a couple things on that one. So,
Which was, what'd you learn?
Well, don't do stuff like that. I mean, the first lesson
don't
is
volunteer, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I was like, man, that is just crazy. I mean, now that I look back at that, I'm like, holy smokes, man. I could have ended up like, I don't know. Anyway, so
could have ended up like that asp.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, so it wasn't a super smart deal, but that was really my first kind of like close contact with enemy soldiers, and so.
Can you say what happened to that tent?
Well, the next group came in, and they basically, I'm not sure what they did with it. I mean, what I'm saying? I'm not sure because they weren't at that time. I think a ceasefire had happened, and they were working out the no-fly zone and all this other stuff. So it wasn't like we were going to call an airstrike in on this thing, because like I said, Desert Storm was 2 weeks. So
didn't take long. And then you had that whole, I mean, the other thing too, you had that highway of death. Those A-10s just chewed up all of those tanks and armor.
That was south of us. Then it rolled in to provide comfort for the Kurds up north. So we actually ended up helping with that humanitarian crisis after we quit doing our sniper missions and all that. So.
Yeah, and I was just curious if you ever had any dealings with the Kurdish fighters, because I've always heard excellent things that they were very good fighters over there.
Yeah, we showed up. We landed in the CH-53s. We went and got in our tent up in Turkey, Salopi, Turkey, and I mean, we had just put our kit down, and our commander, he'd went off to go let people know we were there or whatever, and he comes running back in. He goes, "Hey, get your kit on. We're going on a CSAR." We had a helicopter go down. I mean, this is like we just got there. We're like, yeah. So.
What's CSAR?
It's a search and rescue, basically. You've got an aircraft that's went down, and you're going to try to rescue the pilots and the crew and all that. So CSAR, and so we got in a 53. No, I think there's a 47. I think at this point we went and got on a 47 CH-47.
And these are Chinooks, right?
Yep. And then so. They're giving us updates as we're flying into Iraq. this helicopter. And it was a 53 that had been shot down. I don't know. I never learned what it was shot down with, but they're like, yeah, it's shot down. And looks like there's about 50 guys around the wreckage, blah, blah, blah.
50
And
bad guys, good guys?
well, okay, so we didn't know, so it's just, hey, there's 50 guys around it, basically with weapons. So we're just like, all right, looking at each other. I mean, none of us have been in really anything that's, remotely combat. And so we land this thing probably 200 yards from this thing. We peel out of this helicopter and everybody gets on, half circle around the helicopter. It takes off, and then we form up in our patrol and we start moving toward this helicopter. And we're seeing these people with AK-47s and, and so, we're just kind of trying to get to that helicopter and secure it. Well, we get to the helicopter and our platoon commander, basically makes some kind of contact with the indigenous, and it was Peshmerga. That's who it was. And so they were actually on our side, and we ended up, having a great relationship with them. We actually sat down, had a meal with them. We sat with that helicopter for 2 days, waiting for the word of what to do with it. And I got the crew out, and basically ended up burning the helicopter because there was no way for them to get it out. So,
well, when you guys first got there, not knowing who those people were, how did you avoid a firefight?
Well, us not ever being in combat, it was one of those things that they weren't pointing their weapons at us. They had their weapons slung, or they had it held down to their side. We had our weapons up, so we had the drop on them, and we had enough sense to know, well, these people aren't firing at us. And Iraqi military's in uniform, and these were all in like civilian clothes and this, that, and the other thing. So it was a tense situation for a little bit, until we got our perimeter around the helicopter, and then the commander he just walked up to one of them. He actually waved to, and he waved back, and he walked up and started talking to him, and the guy spoke English. So that was good. I mean, we were ready for it, but nobody was going to be the first to fire a shot when they weren't pointing their weapons at us. So,
well, that greatly reduced the pucker factor too, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, if they'd had weapons up when we got off the plane, who knows, But
so, Talk about the crew. You said you went out there. Did all the crew survive?
The crew survived. Got them all out of there. That's why I say I think they must have been low level or something, and they may have got hit with a ditch gun. They had to put it down. It really wasn't just a crash, because it was in pretty good shape. I think the tail rotor was messed up a little bit. So they really just had a hard landing. And then, like I said, they all survived and got them out.
Nice.
Wow. So you finished, but beyond that, did you have some other missions that you did before you came back stateside?
Yep. So we did there was a squadron of Apaches there, and they have and back then the Kiowas that actually found the targets for the Apaches were these little I think AH-58 I think is the nomenclature. It's called a Kiowa, but they're unarmed. They were back then. So they would go in front of the Apaches and look for tanks, troops, whatever, for the Apaches to shoot, and so, but they were getting lit up every night when they would go out, and they'd just be taking fire. So they came to our platoon. They're like, hey, do you guys have some snipers, in your platoon that we could have ride with us, to give us some cover, at night when we're out riding around, and we're like, well, we don't have any night vision. And they're like, well, we'll give you a set of our night vision. So they had nods. The pilots did back then. And so we rigged up, I had an M16 with a huge laser on the top. It was like a foot long it was just a triangle looking thing. It was like a first generation red laser. Rigged it on top of my rifle, went out and shot it, tried to zero it in. And then went and got on this helicopter, and I just had a piece of tubular nylon, which is just this flat material that you can make slings and stuff out of. So I had about a 8-foot piece of tubular nylon that I hooked on a ring in the middle of that Kiowa helicopter in the back so that I could shoot out of each side. I could move from one side to the other and shoot out of each side. So They gave me a helmet with their nods on it. And so, man, you flip that thing down and it's just like daylight, compared to anything I'd ever seen as far as night vision. Because we had a couple of starlight scopes, basically is what they were, from Vietnam, and they were nothing as close to being as clear as these night vision that the pilots had. So we'd just be flying around and we'd take fire, and then I'd, basically where we was taking fire from, I'd return fire into that, building, or if a guy was shooting, I just, you just return fire on the guy. And so, like, one night we were coming back from one of these missions, and we met a British, I think they're called a Hurricane, their helicopters, and we met them head on. And so, thank goodness, our pilots banked this way and they banked that way, and we missed, the skids missed each other as they passed each other like
Holy
this.
cow.
And I went out the door. I was totally out the bottom door, hanging from my tether of my 8-foot piece of tubular nylon. So I'm hanging underneath this helicopter. And then once we get past these helicopters, they right themselves, and I'm still hanging underneath the helicopter. My ICSs flew off. I was talking to the pilots with. I had a headset like this on, so I'm basically dangling under the helicopter. And luckily, I had my weapon slung on me, so I didn't lose my weapon. So I don't know what the pilots were thinking. They just kept trucking, and I basically claw my way back up this line, and then you get into this helicopter, and I get my ICS, my headset back on. I'm like, "Hey guys," they're like, "Hey, we was wondering where you was at."
Oh, dang!
Yeah.
The British are going, "Oh, that's one crazy mate. He's hanging out the helicopter. He's hanging out the chopper."
No, they were cleaning their drawers just like our pilots were, because it was just like, it was so, because they're probably looking left and right, looking for stuff, and they really weren't paying attention in front of them. And the Brits were doing the same thing. And at the last second, everybody just happened to bank the correct way, so we didn't hit each other head on.
Hey players, that is the end of part 1. Part 2, as always, comes out on Thursday. In the meantime, check us out at Game of Crimes on Twitter, at Game of Crimes Podcast on Facebook, at the Instagram. But where you got to be, got to be on patreon.com/Game of Crimes. We have a ton of good stuff, including, if you are at the right level, Guardian of the Realm and Warden of the Throne, we have just released Part 1, Episode 1 of The Real DEA Narcos, talking about the real DEA Narcos, Cali Edition. Chris Feistel and Dave Mitchell go in-depth, 16 hours, about how they took down the Cali cartel. Information you will not hear anywhere else in the world, not on Netflix, not anywhere, not in a book, only right here on Game of Crimes at patreon.com/Game of Crimes. In the meantime, also go check out our webpage, gameofcrimespodcast.com. We've got the latest merch, pictures for every episode that we put up, books that our guests write. We only put up books that they write. We put them up there. So we thank you once again for being a player in the biggest, baddest, most dangerous game of all, the Game of Crimes.